Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for TWiT specials is provided by Cachefly at cachefly.com.
Hello, Leo.
Hello, Ethan. It's good to see you.
It's great to see you.
Thank you for doing this again.
I can't believe you've all joined us from so far away.
You know, given all the announcements that are going on here, I'm starting to think this is the new South by Southwest. This is the new conference where people come to announce stuff. I think this is really great.
Thank you,
Very
Leo.
excited.
Well, I love what South by Southwest is doing, but thank you for
We're
the
glad to be here. You know Sarah Lane?
Sarah, yes, I know. Of course. How is the
Good to see you
studio?
again.
Did you see your studio?
No, I haven't been over there yet.
Sir?
Kevin, welcome. I'll let you the stage.
All right.
Okay,
Where
thank
should I
you.
sit? Here?
Sit in the middle
It's in the middle.
so we can
No.
grill you.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That works.
We go way back, the three of us.
That's right.
We started working together in 2001.
At the cable
TV.
channel in the United States called
Okay.
Tech TV.
Yep.
And you were an IT guy.
Yes. I was fixing your computers and installing Linux for you and all kinds of stuff.
And you came to our attention particularly because you found a bug in Microsoft Windows,
Right.
a security hole.
Right.
And you said, I found a security hole. And we contacted Microsoft. They said, that's not a bug, it's a feature. And so we decided, we actually talked with the lawyers, and we said, we should go on the air with this.
Right, because they didn't think they needed to patch it or anything like that.
Right, that's not a problem.
And
Yeah.
you were so nervous.
Going on air for the first time? Yeah.
Were you?
Going on TV is very nerve
I
wracking.
agree.
Our producer at the time said, Kevin should do it. And then after you did that, they decided Kevin should do more, and they gave you the name The Dark Tipper.
That's
He
right.
was, the whole idea was he was this kind of hackery type who would give us the dark side.
But he had this baby face and rosy cheeks,
I know.
so we
Did
wanted to
you
give
like
him
that
an
name?
edgy name.
This is an awesome interview. Thanks for grilling me like this the entire time.
That's not a grill.
So fast forward, you were actually at Tech TV when you had the idea for Dig.
Yes, we moved down to Los Angeles after
You and
Comcast.
Sarah were hosting
Attack
the
of the
Attack of the
Show.
Show.
Which the Screensavers previous show had morphed into. Kevin was working on Dig.
What was
pretty
the
much in all of
idea
his
that you
spare
had?
time.
Well, I mean, there was a lot of the sites that were popular back then when it came to the tech news space was more like Slashdot, and also I was a big fan of MacRumors.com. And you know, Slashdot was really cool because it was all user-submitted content, and then the editors went and chose which stories actually made the front page of Slashdot. So I was thinking, well, there's got to be a bunch of gems that are there that haven't seen the light of day because the editor didn't choose those. And so what would happen if you allowed people to vote on those stories and surface the best ones? And so that was 2004, and launched the site after prototyping it probably 30 days later, something like that.
And you were able to take your television at the time celebrity to promote the site. So Dig did get a lot of attention right out of the gate.
For
because
sure.
you had a platform.
Yeah, initially I didn't want people to know that it was mine.
You learned
Well,
better.
yeah.
But we got about 400 or so people on the site initially right off of that, and then it just kind of grew from there, and people liked the idea, and it was fun times.
And then ever since Dig, then there was Dig Nation.
Did you want to
Dig
be an
brand.
entrepreneur? Was that something you wanted to do?
I mean, it's like when I was working at Tech TV, I always, you remember the segments I used to do, all the crazy hacks and mods and stuff like that, and it's like, I always just had these ideas, and I think that, you know, I always wanted to do software development, but I hadn't coded in a long time, and so I was always thinking, like, what can I do, what can I try, what's different, and, you know, you grow up idolizing people like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and what they've done, and I was like, I'd always like to eventually try and do something like that, like try my own thing.
You also used to tell me, probably Leo too, that it started to bother you when you were just talking about all the cool stuff that other people were doing all day. Even on a tech show, you wanted to be one of those people.
Well, we would always have in people like, we interviewed, Steve Wozniak would come on the show. We'd hang out with him. We had the coolest people at Tech TV, like all the big tech celebrities come on. And, you know, you get to meet these people and you realize, well, they're just like me, why can't I be trying to do some of this stuff too? Like, I have some crazy ideas. Let's see what happens, and hopefully something will stick. So, yeah.
All right, so you were at Dig for
6 years.
6 years.
You're not there anymore? You're on the board.
I'm still on the board, yeah.
So what happened?
Basically, gosh, Dig
Grew too big for you.
Yeah, I mean, the first 3 years were just insane. I mean, it was just chaos, like trying to keep the servers up, trying to, everything from scaling the site to launching new features at the same time. It was just a nightmare to figure out how to do that for the first time. I had never done anything like this before. So we were hiring extremely fast. The team grew to, 70-some people. And, I think that a lot of it was, looking back on it, I made a lot of mistakes from everything from hiring to feature development to you name it. I mean, when it's your first time at the rodeo, you just learn so much. And so...
Give me some mistakes that you made that you now would never do.
Well,
Was it hiring? Was that the...
I think that there's a temptation when you're growing a site so fast that you just want to throw kind of warm bodies at a problem. You're like, okay, the servers aren't scaling. Let's just bring in as many engineers as possible that, make code in PHP, right?
Right.
But when PHP is no longer the solution, that you're sitting on a bunch of PHP developers, when you wish you had more kind of Swiss Army knife, like universal developers that can go up and down the stack, right?
So you had locked yourself into something.
For sure, into a type of platform. Even though it was open source and all of that, we have kind of locked ourselves into the MySQL kind of PHP world, the LAMP stack. And then once that no longer worked for us, we were kind of screwed. And so it was just a very hard thing to do while trying to develop new features. And, when you're handling, when you're dealing with there's also, that's just the technical side of things. When you're talking about the community side, there's a whole other world of trying to get people to play nice together. Right.
And nobody'd ever really done this before. Take a community and have the community push the content. So you need the community to do it, but they're unruly. They're not going to do always what you want them to do.
It was crazy. So I'll give you some crazy examples. One, President Obama was trying to become elected. He was running his campaign near the elections. And we had a lot of pro-Obama stories on the front page of Dig. And so some people contacted us and they were really upset, thinking that I personally put these stories on the front page because I wanted to get Obama elected and this isn't fair and you're gaming the system and blah, blah, blah.
But I'm sure there were so many instances of people complaining that you were gaming the whole
We
page.
had death threats come in. We had to contact the FBI. I had to have a bodyguard follow me around for a while because people were saying they were going to come and shoot me at certain events. I mean, it was craziness,
And the same thing happened in the other direction. Conservatives started to game the site, didn't they?
Right, absolutely. And then they were taking down their stories because we allowed you to bury stories. And so then we had to write in safeguards to prevent like mobs from getting together and being able to control the content. So it was just, I went in with like one gray hair and I think I have like several hundred now. So lots of learning.
Dig survives.
Yeah, I mean, Dig goes on.
You've got a new CEO, Matt Williams. Does a good. He's good.
Yeah, he's been great, and we have the site still has right around 20 million monthly uniques, so it's
which is a great number.
What was it at its peak?
The highest it was 38 million uniques in a month.
It doesn't drop that much.
I mean, it's come down a bit, but like the thing that's difficult is there's these cycles with the web, right? Where every few years. You look at any startup, like any hot startup, like whether it's Instagram or you name it or whatever else is out there, and you have a window.
Right.
You have a window, right? And that window is
a very narrow window. Right. And getting narrower.
Right.
Dig had a lot more time than than say Milk does.
Absolutely.
Does.
Yeah, we either get it right or we don't, and people move on. So it's like, your window's either going to be 6 months or it's going to be 10 years if you're one of the very, very lucky few. And so it's like, you have to figure out how can we continue to evolve the product to ensure that we stay alive and stay relevant, right? And so when Facebook and Twitter and others, emerged around us, they started eating some of our traffic, and people were getting their news via their Twitter feeds and other ways. And so we had to try some big, bold changes to ensure that we would survive. I mean, we saw traffic going down way before I launched that new version of Dig that we did, you know, a year ago.
4.0.
V4. And that was kind of like, it was our attempt to try and become relevant again. And I think that the biggest mistake there was that I should have paid more attention to our real hardcore users of the site versus what everyone else was telling us we should be doing. Like, you know, everyone from investors to you name it, trying to say like, oh, you should be more like Twitter, or you should be more like this. And it's like, we should have stayed a little bit more true to who we are. And I think that Matt's done a really good job at coming in and restoring a bunch of those features and functionality that we lost in V4. So, yeah, they're working on new versions of that as we speak.
So fast forward to 2011.
Yes.
Milk is incorporated earlier this year, April. Your first product under the Milk brand came out in early November to the public.
Yes.
Is that right?
Oink. Correct.
Which is, what's your Rate the Adventure? Is that what you guys, is that your tagline for Oink?
Yeah, we've said that. I think that the best way that I always try to describe it is that there's been so many services out there that allow you to rate places and say that this is 4 to 5 stars or whatever it may be. We really don't care about the places so much. We care about the items inside those places and then comparing those against each other. So we're trying to make sure that you find the best possible thing in your given area.
So I was using Oink. You guys allowed me to get in a little bit early, and I thought it was really fun. But one of the limitations was you need a big database of items and people using it in order for it to be really fun, where you actually get a lot of recommendations when you go into a restaurant for the first time.
Like it works great in San Francisco and not so much in Paris yet.
So I know when Oink went live in the App Store, it was still technically an invite situation. When you would download it, you would enter your information and Oink would let you in as soon as possible.
Right.
That ruffled some feathers. People weren't happy about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there was a handful of services that have tried this model in the past where you let in people that are really passionate and excited about using your product, and hopefully you get those people to create the content so that you can open it up to a broader base. You know, even Pinterest does this today with their iPhone app. They don't let you in unless you get an invite in. So we tried that out.
Apple will let you do that? That seems contrary to their guidelines.
This is tricky.
It's a demo version almost.
Yeah, but what they'll do is that as long as you have an anonymous version of the service, so like you have a portion of the service that you can use without logging in,
I see.
then it's not technically...
So some of it has to be open.
Right, exactly. So,
and the reason you did that is because you couldn't just have a bunch of people come in who weren't already participating. It kind of had to grow organically.
Right, and so we did that, and a lot of people downloaded the app and they're like, I can't get in, what's this? And they just hated it from that point. So we dropped that about a week later. Okay. That was definitely something we learned from.
So
you still learn. There's constantly mistakes and learning all the time.
Yeah.
It's probably a measure of success is how quickly you learn, how willing you are to make mistakes, and then how quickly you can go on from that.
Without a doubt.
And survive it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a never-ending process, and it's something that I really enjoy doing now is sitting down with new startups and talking to them about what the issues they're facing, especially when it comes to community management and things like that.
Yeah, you're an expert on that now.
It's fun to help them hopefully avoid some of the mistakes I made.
Yeah.
So Oink is cool because you can actually like anything in the world. A concept, your lunch, this water, the crowd, anything. But sometimes I wonder if that's so broad that people just don't know how to use it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we have users that come in and they go in and they take pictures of every single book that they own.
That sounds like something Leo did.
And they say, I heart this,
that's what I
love
did.
it. And, well, you were doing some of the equipment that you use in your studio, which was cool.
Yeah.
And then...
Well, because one of the things that people haven't used Oink that you do is and this was smart, you build up your cred in a area.
Right.
So if you want to be an expert in sound gear, you do a lot of rating of sound gear, and that raises your street cred in sound gear.
Exactly. Like I'm a level 8 in tea and a level 10 in cocktails.
And absolutely, if you recommended tea or cocktails, I would go for it.
Could I game your cred by going into every one of your tea submissions and saying, don't like?
You wouldn't damage my cred. But and you wouldn't really be building cred because we look at where you are when you're rating those things. So you actually have to be near the object when you're rating something.
Okay.
So if you go and you rated a burger right now that was in San Francisco, you really wouldn't get the same
It's
effect.
just nothing. But there's no negative effect. There's just no positive effect on my side.
Right.
This is the challenge, it seems to me, of these kinds of apps. I think of Quora as well, and Dig too, is that in order for you to succeed, you have to get your users to put a lot of energy and a lot of work into it. And you have to think of ways to make that fun.
Oh, absolutely.
Is it gamification? Is it that kind of thing? Is it?
I worry that kind of, gamification and just leveling up and things like that those things are great to hook users for the first few months.
Yeah.
And then it just gets old,
Right.
And so I think that there has to be real utility in the application. And I think for us, so an example of some features that we're working on now that we haven't released yet, but right now, Oink knows that I love cocktails, and I'm a big, I like coffee, like cafe au lait is something.
Everyone knows you like cocktails, Kevin.
Right. I'll stop mentioning cocktails. But the cool thing
It's not just Oink.
That's right. But the cool thing is that, like, in the future version of Oink, when I land in somewhere like Paris and I open Oink for the first time, it says, hey, we know you're out of your comfort zone. You're not in San Francisco any longer. Here are the 5 things that you might really enjoy in the city, as voted on by similar like-minded people that also really enjoy whatever it may be that you're into.
So you have an algorithm that also says similar like-minded?
Well, that'll be coming, and it's not really an algorithm. It just looks at who else is influential and like whatever cred that you're building in. So if you're,
I don't have to follow. Oh, I do follow somebody in Oink, right? But it's not just people I follow.
Right. So it's based on the cred itself. So like, let's say that you said that you're really into coffee and you arrive here. We would look at all the influential coffee people in Paris and say these are the ones that they're enjoying, and you might want to check them out.
So how's it going so far? It's
been good.
It's been a month?
Yeah, we just, this week we were Apple's application of the week. And so we've been getting tons of downloads through that.
That makes a big difference when you get that front page?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you get that front page promotion from Apple, and it drives...
How much of a difference?
I mean, it just drives thousands and thousands of downloads a day.
Is it like the day you launched? I mean, is it back to where people are crazy about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's always like, it's a huge shot in the arm when it comes to like usage. I mean, it's nice, actually. We saw a bigger spike on day one because you have these articles that go live, and then everyone goes and checks it out at the same time. Right. Theirs is more sustained, where you see someone signing up like every few seconds for the service.
So how many active users do you say you have on average?
Around 40,000 or something like that, active right now. Mm-hmm. That would be that have checked it in like the last few days or something like that. So we've had 100 and I don't know, maybe I haven't checked the stats in the last few days, but maybe 150,000 downloads, something like that, and hundreds of thousands of oinks, people voting on different things, and hundreds of thousands of items being added, and millions of sessions. Like we track the sessions, how many times the app's been opened, and so that's...
What would success be for you over the next 6 months to a year for Oink?
I think that if we can get to a point where when you arrive in a city and there's anything that you're passionate about, something that you really love, whether it's pizza or you go to a theme park and you want to find the best roller coaster or whatever it may be, if we can build out the major cities to where you can really, truly get a great experience from it and actually find really cool stuff, and as a user you're happy, that when you use the app, you're like, wow, I just discovered something really awesome I would have never found by myself. Like that's awesome. If we can make that happen, then I think that we'll just continue to grow.
You know, that kind of reminds me of a little bit was the latest iteration of Gowalla. That had a lot of an emphasis on traveling and finding cool things to do when you're you were an investor.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I haven't. I didn't spend that much time with the new version of Gowalla. There wasn't really ranking things though. It was more like a story.
It's your story, I think,
right?
is what they wanted. Yeah.
But it was the sort of thing where you would go somewhere familiar and there would be a lot of ideas of what you could do and see.
Yeah, they had guides almost, right? That you could come in and check out all the different places, which was really cool.
So we have a minute left. Tell us about your most exciting investment that you're hot on right now.
Oh gosh, there's.
How many do you have?
Total investments, maybe 30 or so.
Wow.
Something like that.
Wow.
How do you feel about Path 2?
It's awesome.
That's pretty hot right now.
Dave's been doing really amazing work. You know, I'm stoked to see it take off. It's really cool because that team is he's got a stellar team working for him.
30 seconds left. Dignation, it's all over.
Yes.
You're not going to do it anymore?
Our last episode is December 30th.
And you're going to do a big
Los Angeles
splash, big party.
Big, party with fans coming.
And why did you end that?
It's been 6 years. I'm ready for a little bit of a break, you know? Yeah. We might at some point down the road.
You also still do your foundation podcast, which is interviews with entrepreneurs and less beer.
Yeah, so I'll be doing a lot more stuff like that going forward. But yeah, and coming on TWiT and hanging out with you guys.
Yeah, we love having you.
Always.
Kevin Rose, great to see you.
Cool. Thanks so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. And Leo will have you back. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for
coming.
Great
to be here.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
And Leo
will return tomorrow.
Yes, and you have your studio. Did you see it?
We're running over there right now. We're going to
run.
About 700 people since last year, maybe even more. So we interviewed you about what you're doing, some of your history, how Oink is going.
This is just TWiT, right?
Yeah.
Well, no,
actually,
fancy.
This is also one of the. There's 3 streams coming out of LeWeb.
Oh,
they're having there's 2 plenary sessions, and then there's this. So this is one of
so people can tune into it on
the LeWeb channel. And then we're also rebroadcasting on TWiT, and we're going to put it out on TWiT specials.
Awesome.
And we should say, actually, thank you to Loïc Lemaire, to Geraldine, and to the whole LeWeb conference facility staff, because it's really an amazing event, and they've done a great job putting this together, and they invited us this year, and we're really happy to be here.
They did all of this. We just showed up and sat
down. And
down.
thanks to IBM who put this booth together, and
it's awesome.
And so so what we're going to do is for the next 3 days, for about 4 hours each day, starting right about now, which is 1 p.m. Paris time.
5 a.m. Pacific, 8 a.m. Eastern.
Yeah, is we're going to get people, pull people, yank them out off the stage after their talks, and talk to them in a more intimate setting. So this will be a lot of fun for us.
The stage is, I mean, those interviews are fun, but 20 minutes when you got someone you want to talk to goes by like that.
Loïc keeps things moving really quickly, really like clockwork.
All right, so what are you guys building at Milk?
So
you got Oink out. What's next?
we honestly, when you have a small team, I mean, we're a total of 7 people. I don't think you can move on to the next project until we've fully vetted out this one. So we've still got another 2-3 months of really kind of making sure that Oink is where we want it to be. So another few releases, and then we'll start thinking about what we're going to do next.
Are there already features of Oink? And by the way, anyone who's not familiar with Oink, the app, it's a bit of a rating system, a social rating system
for real-world objects around you.
Right.
Yeah.
So it could be, I could like your shirt. I could take a picture of it and add it on Oink, and then maybe add a little comment about why I liked it so much.
Most of the ratings are actually happening inside of places. So like if you go into a restaurant, take a picture of a dish, or you go into a theme park, take a picture of a roller coaster, and then you can see what the best things are at that particular place.
Do you find that you want to discourage people from oinking sort of what I just described, where it's not really related to anything? Nobody could go buy that shirt after I've said that I liked it. Do you want it to have a little bit more structure?
No, we designed it so it was completely freeform. We didn't know what people were going to do with it. And so, you know, we have people rating their favorite movies, their favorite iPhone apps, whatever it may be. I've seen someone rated their, not their dermatologist, but their hygienist on Oink. So
that's
it's
actually good. So it's almost like
cool.
Yelp in that case.
Yeah, so it's... We're just sitting back and watching and saying, okay, what are people doing with this, and deciding where to go from there.
That must be something you learned from Dig, which is that you can't predict. What people are going to do with something.
The second you think you know what they're going to do, they do something completely different.
Right. So best to make a platform that can grow and go with, be flexible enough to go with whatever people want to do.
Exactly. It's like when you first started doing it, you were doing your podcasting gear. You were doing, you did some movies too, I think, right?
Canada,
yeah.
we were doing all over the place, yeah.
Yeah.
It's true, though. I think that it's really important to understand that when you create a product, you tell me if this is how it feels. I suspect it is. It's like you put it out in the world, and then the world does with it what it wants. Did you feel early on that you could control what was going on?
On Oink or on Dig?
Or anything. Any of your projects.
You know,
Well, the idea with Dig was that you wouldn't have to control everything.
Yeah, I mean,
it was supposed to not be an editorial
Wisdom of the
thing.
crowds. Yeah.
In a perfect world, that would be the case, right? But then the second Dig started gaining some momentum, you have people that want to build a game that, right? And that's the same thing that we've already started to see with Oink. Like, people want to try and get their favorite things rated higher because they really are passionate about those favorite things, right? And so sometimes that can be a good thing. Other times it can be, you know, people being paid to do that because they're, you know, it's hard to control. It's impossible to control.
All right, so what are the types of things that people are passionate enough about so that they might pay someone else to oink for them?
Well, I haven't seen any paid oinking going on yet.
You know from the past at Dig that these sorts of things do happen.
Really? Right. Yeah. I mean, we've seen definitely at Dig. We've seen that happen, and I've seen. I mean, just different types of gaming happen where there'll be like you can see cohorts of people and groups of people come in all from one single IP address or from proxies or things like that. So there's a variety of different ways people can try and do that.
Obviously, Oink it's a unique product, but there is definitely crossover with other photo apps, check-in apps, apps that let you rate things. And it seems like now you have a 7-person team, so it's not as if some feature that you want to roll out is just going to happen tomorrow. Sometimes it's a long process. But it seems like one of the big, where an app can really, really stand out from other apps that people might think are similar is fast. Something like Path, the new Path, to me, is pretty much the fastest of the apps that I've seen so far.
Yeah.
What are they doing? And is that something that Oink can do? Is it just like a secret sauce that nobody really knows what the other people are doing, or how's that work?
It's interesting in iOS development because it's all Objective-C. It's not like just writing a web page and saying, okay, how can we speed up the response times from this server? For us, the server side of things is very fast, meaning like to hit our API and get back a result and all the data, that's fine. Those problems have been solved. Where it gets complicated on the iPhone is when you're talking about creating custom UIs that break like the conventional iPhone elements that they have built into the OS. So all of our buttons are custom, all the backgrounds are custom, the fonts are embedded in custom, like it's all, so these are all things that need to be optimized. So for us, we went out there, our early builds, I mean, you remember, you were on the beta, were extremely kind of slow and sluggish, and then we went back in and, spent it's just a matter of a developer sitting down and going over what's slow and why and optimizing that stuff and rewriting some of the code and figuring out which images to cache and, how to deal with make the scrolling smooth. And it's, for example, we're rolling out another build in a couple weeks, and we found out that one of our backgrounds, and you wouldn't normally think a background would cause any type of major issues. One textured background was like slowing down the entire app by like 25%.
Wow.
Just from having like something simple like that, and you don't realize, and you're like, okay, wow, we have to go in and double check and triple check everything to make sure it's performing. And Dave at Path, his engineers are brilliant, and they spent the time in this release to go back and go through every single line of code and ensure that it was optimized.
I was actually talking to Dave Morin about the Android version of his Path app, because he's done both. And he said, for instance, animations are kind of built in. You have core animation on the iPhone. You don't on Android. You've got to do it all by hand. That's one reason they don't have that timestamp, that floating timestamp on the Path app. Any Android plans for any of your stuff, or are you just going to stick with iOS?
No, I definitely want to do Android stuff. I think that there's a couple hurdles with Android. One, when you have a small team, it's just a matter of resources.
You have how many? 2 programmers?
We have 3 engineers, and so 2 of those are iOS. One can do iOS, but he's mostly focused on back-end stuff. So we can do that. That's not a problem. Do an Android version, but the issue is that, on Android, it's really tough internally because, one, you want to make sure your product has enough traction before you decide to go Android, right? Because you would hate to go prematurely. And the second thing is that...
Oh, but isn't that where so many millions of people are already?
Yeah, but here's the
problem.
problem.
Couldn't that catapult you?
Yeah, but here's the problem with Android. Android users are in a couple different camps. They're in the hardcore geeks that are like really early adopters like Leo that I would love to have on an Android version. And then you have everyone that's going out there and getting the free phone.
And there's a lot of them. I see a lot of less experienced users using Android.
And there's nothing wrong with those people, but they just don't download a lot of apps.
That's not who you want.
Well, they don't know how to download apps, and they're just like, my mom goes out and gets an Android phone because she looks and says, that's a smartphone, that's what I want. And it's cheap. It's cheap, and she doesn't know the first thing about it. So, yes, you have the install base, but are the actual real users there that you want? I would say yes, because the hardcore is there, but it's not your first thing that you go to. iOS has got the users that I want right now to vet out the project, to prove that it actually has legs.
How about the back end? How important is that for something like you, the server end?
It's gotten a lot easier in the last few years.
Are you using EC2? What are you?
EC2.
So you use Amazon's EC2
They're
cloud
everything
computing
that they
servers.
have.
You turn on a switch.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
And it scales. If you need more, you just buy more.
Yeah, and the issue there is that you know, they have a load balancer built in now, which is really nice.
That's nice, yeah.
Obviously, they do all of our image hosting and everything through their storage product. It's been great. It's nice because we used to have to rack servers. I mean, when we were first starting Dig, we'd go down there at the facility, and I was sliding in servers.
I remember, and you were so excited when you got your server rack and all of that. Right. Yeah, I remember that. And now it's a whole different process, isn't it?
It's just really cheap.
So
awesome.
you can focus on the front end, on the app, on the user experience, and you don't have to worry so much about the back end.
And database has gotten better, gotten a lot better.
What are you using?
We're MongoDB right now, and we mostly all in Python now. But there's a whole slew of different technologies like Redis and some other stuff that we're using that are just like pretty mature, you know.
Right.
And it's like you don't have to really worry. They can see levels of load that, you know, 5-6 years ago when I first started Dig would have been really scary on how to scale that.
Does that concern you? The barrier to entry now is very low. There's a lot of competition.
Oh,
anybody can do an app.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
So we saw at South by Southwest. There was no, remember every year in the past at South by there's been a big winner. There was Gowalla, there was Foursquare. Last year there wasn't because there were 300 apps.
Right.
And no one could stand above the crowd.
Yeah.
Well,
it's an issue.
Your whatever you put out, and obviously you know this, gets a lot of interest and traction because you've been out there long enough. You have a very wide reach as far as Twitter followers and Facebook subscribers and things like that. So I do think that you have an edge out of the gate for anything that you put out. People might not stick, but certainly it's not hard for you to get publicity and get the word out.
Yeah, I mean,
that helps, right?
It definitely helps to get things off the ground, but you know, I just want to make sure that we're doing things that people will look at and say, well, that's interesting. I don't know if it's going to work, but they're doing something really cool. Mm-hmm. And that's all you can hope to do as entrepreneurs, try and push things forward.
So, iOS team of 7. Sounds a lot like Instagram. I think they only have 7 employees,
They're
too.
almost going to be 10 now.
Almost going to be 10, so similarities
size,
there.
yeah.
And,
we actually hang out and trade stories and go and have drink-ups. That's one of the cool things is being around all these other companies. Like, there was a time when I had beers, and they're like, oh, here's how we did this optimization here. And you just trade code ideas, and it's awesome.
There is a value to being all in the San Francisco Bay Area and the Silicon Valley area. Everybody knows everybody else, and it's interesting how kind of non-competitive it is, or I guess co-opetition is what you'd call it.
It is crazy.
Yeah.
Like, you have no problems talking technical and sharing, you know. You don't talk about your future kind of features if you're competing, but if there's tech challenges that someone's running into, it's totally cool.
So you must spend a lot of time thinking about what's next, what the big trends are. What do you see? I mean, we're seeing a big social's huge right now. Mm-hmm. Using a social graph to do things like pick products or restaurants.
Mm-hmm. Great things.
What is next?
I think a couple things. I would like to see someone really tackle, this word's been thrown around a lot, but like the interest graph, like actually knowing what you're into and what you enjoy and figuring out how to connect you with other like-minded people, I think is really interesting. And I also,
so instead of making friends by choosing them actively, you passively could find friends.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things
they're trying that out right now.
There's some discovery.
I get that, but I don't think anyone's like hit it out of the park yet. I think it's
People
early
are
days.
Experimenting.
But I think that could be really powerful. The other thing too, I got to tell you, is I think end of next year, Apple does a TV. I think that's going to disrupt television. If they make installable iOS apps on a television, I think that's going to be huge.
In what way?
I mean, it's just going to make independent providers have the same kind of level playing field as major carriers, right? Like you'll be able to download the TWiT app and have the same front real estate right on the screen as NBC or anyone else.
Kevin Rose, from your mouth to God's ears. God's ear. I hope he's listening, and we're glad you came by. And
thanks for having me.
I think we should boot him though, because we got a long list of people to talk to.
Can I just ask one more question?
Yeah.
You want
to ask about the engagement, right?
Oh, about Kevin. Are you getting engaged?
I haven't announced anything yet.
Oh. But you're not denying
Paris
that you're
is
getting
a great
engaged.
place. This is where Marissa Meyer
got
engaged.
Oh, really?
He wasn't going to go to the...
EMG was going to pop a question to you, though.
No, you heard wrong.
I think he's right out there. He can't get in, but he would be.
Yeah, that was on TechCrunch.
Yeah,
you want to come in and pop the question?
In this nice warm room. No, my question is about iOS, because you said that you're focused on iOS for now. Obviously, iPads are very important to me, as Leo and I co-host iPad Today on TWiT. Mm-hmm. iPad app? Would it make sense for Oink? If it doesn't, are you looking at figuring out how to make something for the iPad?
It's not terribly difficult to port an app over. I mean, obviously our app
Well, I
already
know
runs on
that,
the iPad.
but if it's not universal, it can suck.
Yeah, it can suck. So, it's not in. I just don't like. You're gonna have your phone with you when you're out mobile and you're looking for something interesting and cool. So this is most likely the use case of a mobile consumer. Maybe something like where you can help.
It's definitely not something you're working on now, though.
No, not right now.
All right.
Well.
We have a rule that when sweat starts to break up on your forehead, that we let you go.
It's
a little warm in
this
studio.
You're wondering why we're all sweating.
So Kevin, good luck. It's really good. You're going back home tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow, heading back.
Got a big meeting in the Napa wine country, so you go have that meeting.
That's right. You will see my oinks.
And it's really nice to see you. It's
Thanks,
really
guys.
good. Congratulations on Oink. I think it's beautiful.
Thanks for coming by.
Appreciate it. You did a great job.
Absolutely.
Kevin Rose, everybody.
So we'll maybe see you later then. Sounds good. Okay.
We continue. We are live from LeWeb' in Paris, France. And next on the agenda, Om Malik is here. Come on up from gigaom.com. He is celebrating this year his 10th year as a blogger, wrote an incredible post.
Hello.
It's great to have you.
How are you?
Hold this right in front of your mouth like that.
I would hug you, but I'm disgusting.
I know. Me too.
Okay.
It's too hard.
So,
what is this? True Founder Camp.
First time at LeWeb'?
Third time.
Third time. You notice a difference this year?
Bigger. It's hot. It's nice, warm, toasty, which is not
what
what
snowing last year. It was ice
I wasn't
cold.
here last year, but the 2 times I've been.
You missed the snow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So everybody should know Om because, of course, he is a blogger. He's a journalist, first and foremost, but also an investor. And I would say probably one of the most important voices in Silicon Valley today.
Well, actually, my mom thinks so.
And we're really glad to see you. Are you presenting here?
I just was looking at your watch, man.
You like that?
Yeah, it's very grown up of you.
I am grown up. Are you into watches? I see you have a very nice watch. Tell us about your watch.
But not as good as yours. I'm just.
It's big numbers.
Oh,
Yeah, I think I'm old and I need
I think the thing that's interesting is this is so retro because this is now pure jewelry. Nobody needs a watch anymore.
No, you do need a watch.
Your phone tells you what time it is all the time.
Phone doesn't do everything.
Doesn't Siri tell you what time?
I don't wear a watch for the. It's like I can't.
Siri doesn't
justify
understand
it.
Indian accent. Let me be very honest.
So what are you seeing? I know LeWeb's just begun.
This
is just the first day of LeWeb'. It's probably too early to ask you if you're seeing anything interesting, any trends.
A lot of startups. I think, the big thing which I'm seeing is not just in Paris and at LeWeb', but across the world. There are just many more people trying many more things. We don't know if all of them are going to work out, not going to work out, but it's very different than, the first time I was here 4 years ago, 2007. There weren't that many startups. There are just many more people trying many more things.
Is it what Kevin was saying, that the barrier to entry is low? It's easy to set up an EC2 instance. It's easy to do this stuff now?
I think a bit of that. I think the other thing is that a lot of us feel, at least the entrepreneurs feel, that it's the only way to move forward. Like, just create a job for yourself before, rather than look for a job. And I think that, worked out for you, worked out for Sarah, worked out for me. So.
Yeah, I think it's a message for our kids. It's one of the things that I try to get these high schools to do, is to start teaching entrepreneurialism, because a lot of kids are going to come out of school and there won't be jobs waiting for them. If they can create their own jobs, they're so much ahead of the game. It doesn't have to be an entrepreneur. It could be the gig economy. It could be a consultant. It could be a graphic artist who hires him or herself out. But I think you need to create your own business.
I think so I have this theory that we've ended the industrial age is over, and we've entered into like an internet economy. Not the internet economy as you read in the 1990s in the magazines, but in the real internet-based economy, where internet plays a vital role in our lives in society, in how we live, communicate, interact, shop, all those things. And mobile is like the next evolution of that. And as a result of that, many more companies are being created to tap into that. I think, Kevin was talking about Oink, and, 5 years ago, who would have needed Oink, right? Like, it was not a product of the industrial era, but it is the product of, as we try to bridge the internet and the real world together. Sarah, you're very quiet. Should I interview you?
No, I'm just listening to you. I'm actually, well, yeah,
always
exactly.
brings up big thoughts, and
Big
it's kind of, you have
thoughts.
to sit back and digest a little bit.
One of the things I like about not only reading Gig Ohm, but I also subscribe to your newsletter. And it's
Ohm Says.
Yes, Ohm Says, which is some of my favorite weekend reading because it's just links that you found around the internet that you think are going to be helpful or interesting or some of both to people. How much time do you spend reading other blogs, news services, even stuff that isn't going to end up necessarily getting covered by Gig Ohm itself?
A lot. So I spend about 90% of my time reading, gathering information, talking to people. I don't like to write as much as I used to, mostly because I somehow feel that you have to be very selective as what you share because people have many more things to read on the web. So there's 15 great writers at Gig Ohm, right?
Yeah.
I can't be hogging this space. So I just consume a lot more. And I think I've entered that phase of my life where I want to actually think and share and actually help people think differently. And I feel very, excited about that, which is why I'm actually here. So I would say I spend about 9 hours, 10 hours a day reading. Like I read pretty much everything which gets published, and I just read everything.
So what's your favorite method? You obviously must have a crazy RSS list. How are you reading if you've got, you start up, your day's getting started, you got to catch up on a lot of stuff. What's your method?
So I have 3 things I use pretty effectively. So I use Evernote, Flipboard, and Instapaper.
Yeah.
So I keep saving things on Instapaper and for reading on my iPad. And I use Evernote for any links which have videos or pictures in them. So I think Instapaper doesn't do a good job of saving the videos and all that kind of thing. So I save Evernote for that. And I use Flipboard for quick scanning through news. Like, it's a great way to keep up with your feed or MG's feed or Leo's feed. Like just quickly scan through. It's very low barrier to entry. What else do I use? I use Reader, still old-fashioned.
Google Reader or R-E-E-D?
R-E-E-D, yeah, which is so
that's
much
a
better.
really great app.
But I'm just kind of worried now because it seems like Google's going to kill Google Reader in some fashion or the other. So
Flipboard seems in a way to be, by picking up on social signals, to be in fact better than a reader. I think that's what's happening to news readers in general.
You think Google's going to kill Google Reader?
No. I'm just like they're just
they keep changing it.
Yeah,
I think they want to incorporate it into Google
but that
Plus
softens
as much
your
as possible.
confidence in it.
Yeah, I don't know. They've been killing a lot of projects, so let's not get married to any of the things they're building.
See, that's the risk of them killing stuff.
So it just is one of those things. I like the idea of Flipboard because that's the only thing they do, so they can't shut it down, right? So.
I was hoping to get Phil on, not Phil, Mike McCune on here. He's, I think, leaving, but maybe we'll try to get him tomorrow. But it's interesting, 2 of the products you mentioned had big announcements at LeWeb. Flipboard announced this iPhone app, which is, I think, spectacular. What do you think?
I've been using it for a week, and I've stopped using the iPad version.
I told Mike the same thing. I said it's actually, as much as we love the iPad version,
it's more addictive,
I think it's better.
More engaging, it's like for snacking, whereas the iPad app is like sit down and start of the day, end of the day.
More like a magazine.
Yeah. So it's fun. What about you guys? Like, how do you do it? I know you write a lot of stuff and, talk about a lot of stuff or how do you guys kind of use and aggregate?
I asked Sarah this on the iPad the
we just had this conversation. I use Google Reader through Reader, or Feedly is my new Google Reader alternative, which works really well. I like it. I love Flipboard, but Flipboard is definitely more for like if I'm in bed and I'm just not tired yet and I've got an hour to kill type of thing. I'm not using that to catch up on news quickly. I hit Tech Meme a million times a day to see what's coming up to the top, what's new. If I haven't already seen it, my Twitter feed. And that's obviously
Gabe's here. We should get him.
Oh yeah, he says
get him over. Okay, yeah. Gabe Rivera, the founder of Tech Meme.
Yes, who's a very interesting guy. And
why do you laugh?
Why do I laugh?
She's been spending a lot of time with Gabe and Alexia. I've been following her on Path.
No, I laugh because Gabe he's so extremely brilliant.
And quiet.
And yeah, soft-spoken.
He's very quiet.
And it's like once you get to know him, he's great, but he's hard to get to know.
Yeah.
You know how.
Do you feel like, though, in some ways, all of this app explosion is kind of like the consumer electronics explosion? It's just a lot of eye candy and shiny stuff. And maybe it's just us, but there's a flavor of the week, and then we move on, and we move on, and we move on. And it doesn't seem to be anything with any gravitas.
Yes and no. I think if you look at Flipboard, so Flipboard has a real technology underlying it, right? Like on paper, it looks like just another app, and a lot of people often confuse them with, another reading app. But there is some science behind it. There is a huge amount of information out there. Our social networks are being siphoned off into many different, graphs now. We have a food graph and pictures and cars and whatever not. And you find you need a way to aggregate all that. You need a way to get more information together. So, yes, they are an app with like some logic behind it. There is a different way of thinking behind it. But there's a lot of apps which are just apps, and
right.
Some of them are
a
just
lot of
great.
Me Too stuff. A lot of it's fun. It's eye candy. It's interesting.
But I think the biggest mistake we make as an industry is that we sometimes start making confusing products for companies. It's just an app. Like, just forget everything else. It's just an app, you like to use it, and that's the end of it. There's nothing more to it. And I think, if you're going to look for things of gravitas, you have to look elsewhere as well, right? There is a lot more technologies which are being developed for sensor web and, the Internet of Things. But they're not as easy to access for a common man, right? Like, you don't really care. You just want to see the end result of it. So.
I think also apps we have this need to, like magpies, collect and have the newest and the latest. And we were doing it for a while with gadgets, but that's a pretty expensive habit. Apps are an inexpensive way to satisfy that kind of collector's habit. And you throw them out, and they're I guess what I'm saying is they're disposable.
They are, but they're also a sign of something bigger, right?
That's what I'm interested in, the underlying.
So what is bigger is that, so we've had this one internet experience, which is through one kind of a browser, right? And it is very limiting. Like, it was limited in how we made money off it, like just banner ads or maybe, Google ads. It was very limited in the way you could access it, like only on the computer. So the apps are just a sign of the internet and internet information becoming available in many different ways, in different packaging. And so the apps for television or apps for Facebook or apps for iPhone or Android, they're all sign of that the internet is growing up and becoming an internet of many, many different screens.
Right.
Speaking of Android, you don't like Android so much compared to the iPhone, do you?
I don't dislike it.
Okay. I've seen some of your remarks on Instagram and on Twitter, and I feel like that's your general
now
stance.
That you're putting me in a spot. I'm not religious about platforms. I just am religious about ease of use and comfort level. And like my comfort level is with the iOS. And I have not been able to develop that comfort level with the Android. And I have tried my best,
Yeah.
I use pretty much every Android device that comes. I use it like every day. It just is not me. It's like, I don't want to get religious about it. Like people do get really passionate about it. And mine is like, hey, you can use whatever you want, and I'll respect your decision. And this is how I like to use my phone. So Android tablets, I'm not so sure. Android phones are the new Samsung Nexus. Mm-hmm. It's pretty awesome, actually. Like I say so much.
You don't have that with you, do you, by any chance?
No. I was very surprised.
I'm waiting for mine. Mine's at home.
MG has one. We'll have him bring it by.
Get MG to bring his.
Yeah.
And no, but I'm not so sure about the tablets. Like,
no, I think the Android tablets are pretty horrible. With the exception maybe of the Kindle Fire.
Which you could argue is the least Android-y of all the tablets
Maybe
anyway.
that's the secret to its success. It's so skinned that it doesn't feel like Android.
I like Kindle Touch more than I like Kindle Fire.
Yeah.
I love Kindle Touch. I think that's what...
the Kindle should have been.
Yeah. They've hit the spot. There's some, software bugs, but they'll figure those out. It just is a very well-made product. Now, I like all the Kindle products. Fire, I have an iPad. I'm not so sure I'm sold on it.
It's not for iPad owners. It's for somebody who doesn't have an iPad.
I already spent the money on iPad.
Right,
So.
right. So we live in a little bit of a bubble in Silicon Valley, in which we have moved en masse to Paris. And the bubble is still here. But I know you think a lot about technology around the world, and it's a different world. I think we kind of maybe don't know about what's going on in the rest of the world.
So there's two ways of looking at it. One of them was that 6 years ago, 2005, when I used to come to Europe and for mobile conferences, this was the center of gravity. And just like that with iPhone and Android, we moved
It did shift.
So I think this is where U.S. has to think in terms of how do you make big platform shifts. So we've done well in defining platforms on the internet, right? iPhone, Android, Facebook, Twitter. But my worry is that if we don't think about those new platforms in the future, we're all gonna be left behind because there is other countries with much bigger populations and so I think I skipped one step in my head, so I apologize. My belief is that most countries are successful, most technologies are successful if they have a domestic user base. US was very successful in growing PCs and mainframes and ERP systems and all that because we had our own internal systems. And internal markets were massive.
Right.
Now we have,
it's a big market.
It's
it's
a big
hundreds of
market,
million.
right?
Yeah.
Now we have a big market in China. We have a big market
Much bigger.
in Brazil.
India, China,
Right.
Brazil.
I was talking to Jean-Marie from Photopedia. He said that 40% of his users are coming from Asia. I was amazing, right? You wouldn't have even thought about that number 5 years ago.
Does that mean that we're going to see a kind of a stratification of markets or a breaking up of markets, or will these larger markets become dominant and will stuff start moving towards the U.S.? What do you see happening?
So I think we need to figure out, or at least we need to think about the platforms, right? The iPhone platform, the Android platform, the Facebook platform. Those things are the ones we have exported from the U.S. to other countries.
And they're very successful.
And they
worldwide.
are using it to their own advantage.
Right.
There are local apps which are doing really well based on the Facebook graph and the iOS and whatnot. I think that is how I see us making progress, right?
Building platforms.
With the platforms. But then there
allowing localization on top of a platform.
Right. So what we are very good at in the U.S. for now, I don't know how it will be in the future, we know how to build big audiences really fast. We know how to scale really fast. And we also know how to get the developer momentum around it really fast, at least in the internet space. What happens after that, I don't know. At least for now, it seems to work.
What do you think about LeWeb being in Paris year after year? Obviously, it's called LeWeb. Obviously, Loïc and Geraldine are French, so it all makes sense. But there was some talk. Loïc threw out a question. What would people think about it moving to London, perhaps, for the next LeWeb in 2012? And for whatever reason, that didn't happen, or they decided to stay in Paris for now. What do you think about Paris works for a show like this? Is it just central? Is it what's the?
I think I'm going to channel my inner Eric Schmidt and say Polytechnique and good food and add great-looking gals to it, if you're a geek, that's all you really want, right?
There's something about coming to Paris. It's pretty special.
I love coming here.
I do, too. I think one of the things Loïc said that he wanted to do with LeWeb is to bring American entrepreneurs to meet European entrepreneurs. Do you think the European entrepreneurial environment is different from what we have in the U.S.?
Yeah, a little bit. But it's changing. It's becoming very... We have a universal startup experience. I think there's a lot more people reading, articles on the web. We have folks like, Dave McClure going all over the place talking about his way of doing things. We have Eric Ries talking about the lean startup. So that ideology is being spread widely through the internet. It is one planet. Like literally, the internet has made it
makes it
one planet,
yeah.
right? So we have similar school of thought. And so as a result of that, the startups are beginning to look pretty much similar.
The same everywhere.
Yeah. Which is
We're
good and bad.
exporting the Horatio Alger story to the rest of the world.
Believe me, this is so much better than exporting Big Macs and Coke.
I think so.
Right?
really?
I think so.
I mean,
Brent Hoberman, who's a well-known UK entrepreneur, said one of the things that was missing here was a culture of failure. He wrote an article about that, saying that in the States it's okay to fail. In fact, it's not a mark against you. It might be a badge of honor.
you know, I'll be politically incorrect and say, but the way they're trying to save Greece right now, failure is not okay.
It's not an option. No, I didn't say financial failure, just startup failure.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
you're right. We don't want the financial system to collapse.
Well, I know in the Silicon Valley, having a company or even an app that just doesn't go the way that the company wanted it to go.
It's not a strike against you.
No, it's almost a, hey, it was an experiment, and
Right.
now we're going to go in a different direction, or we're going to split up and go our separate ways. But everyone who has a good success story has a few failures under their belt. It was interesting. LeWeb'11 was talking to a group of us recently about splitting time between the U.S. and France. And obviously, he's an entrepreneur and knows how the two countries differ, and said something that the U.S. is really good at is being able to not have really much of a tradition as far as how business gets done. You know, the internet is young, but America is young too. And
Right.
French tradition and the way that people are polite to each other and the way that meetings are scheduled
And the 32-hour work week.
and how, yes, something will get
11-month year.
exactly something gets signed off on and the papers are signed and gets pushed
Right.
forward. He says is very frustrating now that he's been in the U.S. long enough. He said I wouldn't want to work in Paris all the time. I could just be so frustrated because they're just not efficient.
Were you here the year Mike Arrington told the French that they were lazy? And no, didn't go over well.
well, to each his own, right? Like every country
Well,
is
no one
different.
wants to be called lazy. I mean,
You know, I kind of think that most people and most countries have a rhythm. And, you know, I think the Silicon Valley rhythm is very different from New York. And New York
Yes.
is very different
Yes.
from Dallas or Toronto or,
Right.
or Chicago or in any of the North American cities are different. And I think it just, you know, is France different from U.S.? Of course it is, right?
Thank goodness.
Yeah. And, you know, I'm glad, you know, it is because we come here and we see a different way of doing things.
That's
And we
right.
say maybe some of it is good, right? Some of it is not, right? So, I mean, like I've been like walking around the streets and trying to look at stores and, you know, the retail. I want to see them mostly to see like what are the visual experiences I can take to incorporate in my work, right? Like I went to this store last night at like midnight or 1 o'clock because I couldn't sleep, called Rock and Chic. It's near my hotel. And like just the kind of stuff I was looking at, the French sensibility, right? How much of that we could use in creating products or even apps or designing websites or just anything. It's just, that's why it's great to go to places which are different.
Yeah.
I mean, if we all lived in Silicon Valley and we all did what we do in Silicon Valley, trust me, there will be no Skype, there will be no MySpace, there will be no, you know, Spotify.
Yeah.
We'll be doing exactly the same thing. Sorry. But I have one question for Sarah.
Okay.
So Sarah,
Yes,
I
Om.
met you a long time ago, 4.5 years ago, when you were producing the Gig show.
right.
Wait a minute, I
Yeah,
didn't know
she did.
that.
Well, it was brief because
Right.
Was that at TechCrunch?
no,
No,
it was
Revision
at
3.
Yeah, Revision
Yes.
3.
Yes.
The other network.
Oh, no, I love them. They're all my
No, I'm
friends.
just joking.
I mean, I work
I
at, I work
didn't
at all
realize.
networks.
I didn't realize you produced his show.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
great.
the Gig show
So you're
had
old
been
friends.
had been greenlit, and then I came on
And then Om had a heart attack, I think.
well, actually, not long after that.
Yeah.
That's because
true.
she and I had a fight.
She almost
and
killed
boom.
you.
Right. Yeah.
But she's known to do that.
Stressful.
Yeah, let me see again, the same thing. At that time, too, she didn't listen to me at all. I want to know, how did you reinvent yourself? I think you went through some life changes, and I've always been curious to know, like, what did you do? Like, you're a very different person.
Then when you feel like you met me 4.5
Yeah.
years ago,
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Well, I guess the wisdom of aging is part of it, but When I was working at Revision 3, I was coming off of a year not working at all. I was traveling abroad. I was totally out of the space. I remember Kevin Rose, I was living in Argentina, and he emailed me and said, "You've got to sign up for Twitter before someone else takes your name." And I was really far removed from all the cool stuff that people were doing.
Yeah.
So when I came back to the States, Revision 3, they had many employees, David Prager, Jim Louderback, that I knew from Tech TV, who had an opening for a producer. So I started working with them, and I'll say, I think it took a bit of relearning to get into the groove, because I was coming from TV in LA. Leo and I started doing TV together in San Francisco, but the two aren't very different. It was a more traditional TV thing. And then I was doing internet broadcasting. So I'm not sure what really changed. I mean, besides maybe, getting a little older and wiser and calming down a little bit. I think what we do now...
Because I've worked with her since before then and now. She seems the same person to me, so I'm just wondering what you were like in those days.
Yeah,
She must have been going through a bad time.
She's much more chill. Like, I watched the show.
She's very chill now.
Yeah, and like, it's just like, oh, okay, this is like, I don't have to feel like stressed out watching this thing, and it was like very nice. And it's
she's the relaxed Sarah Lane.
I'm trying to pay you a compliment.
She was always
not doing a good job of that.
I'm glad.
It's great to see you. Om Malik, gigaom.com. Enjoy the rest of. Are you going to be here all week?
Yeah, I am.
Good.
I'm going to Berlin and then to Helsinki.
Ah, what fun!
Yeah, I'm on my Euro trip 2011.
That'll be fun. That's
How long are you going to be in Berlin for?
3 days.
Nice.
3 days in Helsinki.
Cool.
That's more than enough. I miss my...
You're going to meet startups there and everything?
Yeah. Just want to see like what's going on. I think we all sit here and, in our nice apartments and read all these things. Unless you see them, you don't really know them. Like, you see what's going on in Europe. It's pretty amazing.
Exciting, yeah.
Great. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you.
As always, great to see you guys.
It's great to see you. Take care.
Leo.
Yeah, enjoy the rest of your week here.
Thank you.
Hey, we're going to go into space in just a little bit. You are watching TWiT live at LeWeb in Paris. You know who's next?
Who, Leo?
George Whitesides of Virgin Galactic. Would you like to go into space sometime?
Yes.
All right. Well, this is the guy who's going to put you there.
All right.
George, welcome.
Hi, George.
Good to
nice
see you.
To
Have
meet
a
you.
seat.
Apologies for our very, very sauna-like interview area.
Pick up that mic and stick it in your face in your general direction.
Yes.
So, Virgin Galactic is located where?
We're based all over the world, but our headquarters is in LA, Southern California.
Yeah. And it's going to take me into space, right?
That's right, yeah.
Is that the
We're
plan?
gonna take you and everybody else. That's the idea.
So if we want to sign up, what do we do? How do we get going?
Well, I'll be taking reservations after this interview.
Okay.
And,
All right.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, though. How much?
Well, the full price is $200,000,
Okay.
but you can put down a deposit down
Sir, can I
to
borrow a couple of bucks?
$20,000. Yeah.
And how soon are we going to be able to do this?
Soon. So like within a couple years.
Really?
Yeah.
What does the interior of the airplane look like? Does it look like is it a rocket? Is it an airplane? Do we have first class and coach and?
Sir, it's sort of a secret, to be honest.
Okay.
But what I can tell you is that it is 6 passengers and 2 pilots.
Okay.
So it's an 8-person vehicle. Give you a sense of, sort of like a mid-size business jet kind of size. We have lots of space inside so people can get out of their seats when they get up into space and float around.
Will
and
you be
experience
weightless? Oh, you will be.
Oh, yeah. So, Virgin Galactic is obviously like Richard Branson's space company, and was started in 2005 to basically open space up to the rest of us. NASA does great things. I used to help run NASA.
Oh, really?
But they're not.
That's interesting.
They're not really.
They're not
really.
It's a public space flight.
Yeah, they're not there to take the rest of us into space.
Yeah.
So Richard wanted to essentially take the rest of us to space, and that's what we're trying to do.
It's Spaceship 2.
You got it. Yeah.
Not Spaceship
2.
1.
Not Spaceship 1. Spaceship 1 was this historic project that won the X Prize. Some of you may know about the X Prize. And so what we did at Virgin was we said, let's take that technology, which was essentially a prototype, and we'll turn it into a commercial vehicle.
So you said, what, 8-seat plane, 6 passengers,
Yep, you got it.
$200K a pop.
Yeah.
Do you how many of these flights do you already have lined up? Because I know people have already bought into this.
Yeah, we've got now 475 people who have put down money. Most of those have put down full deposits.
Wow.
So we've got over $60 million of deposits now, and They're fully refundable, so when you put down your deposit, you don't have to worry about anything.
If you get cold feet.
Exactly. And so what does that equal? So we're getting up towards 100 flights, not quite there yet, but we're getting there, yeah. What's interesting is that so the total number of people who've been to space ever is 525. We will fly that number in about the first year of commercial operations.
Now, we should be clear, these are suborbital flights. You're not going into space.
Well, you're still going to space.
You're going to space,
but
you're not going around.
You're not going into orbit. Okay. Exactly. Yeah.
So how long is the flight then?
It takes about 2 hours.
And you're going how high?
Going about 100 kilometers high.
Okay. With a rocket?
Yeah, you got it. So we have a two-stage, I wish I could show you a picture, but we have a two-stage system where basically you have a carrier aircraft and then a little spaceship that sticks underneath it. And the carrier aircraft essentially drags the spaceship up to...
So that's like a 747 or something that can lift it up high enough.
Exactly. We've got, I mean, it's like a custom-built aircraft, but you can think of it as a big aircraft. Take them up to 50,000 feet, and then we release the spaceship.
And then
the rocket fires, and you turn vertical, and you go, up to 100 kilometers.
Have you started building any Spaceship 2s yet?
Yeah. No, they're flying.
They're flying?
They're flying, yeah. So we're in test flight right now. We're hoping to get to space next year.
Wow. How many do you have?
Like vehicles, you mean?
2? Is there Eve and Spirit of Steve Fawcett? Is that right?
We have one
That was the White Knight.
Yeah.
Enterprise and Voyager.
Yeah, we have one at White Knight, and we have one spaceship. White Knight, which is the carrier aircraft.
Yeah, I get it.
The mothership.
I get it.
Is called Eve.
Got
but
it.
It's Richard's mother is also named Eve, so get it. And then of course we had to name our spaceship Enterprise. I mean, it's just like
absolutely.
And
Voyager
the circle
will be the next one.
is closed or whatever the right word is.
So if the journey from start to finish is just 2 hours, how many are going up in a day, or would you even have more than one flight in a day?
That's a great question. So to start off, we think that so like in all of human history, the fastest or most frequent service to space by a single vehicle has been maybe once every month, once every 6 weeks, something like that. The space shuttle went up pretty quick. That was like very fast for the shuttle, and that was using multiple vehicles. So we think we're going to start at around once a week.
Once a week.
So that's sort of a cautious rate for us, but it's also dramatically faster than any other space vehicle. And then, but we're designing the vehicles to go up every day. So over time, we'll increase that rate so that we can send more people into space and lower the cost over time.
Is the goal, I mean...
it's crazy.
So you were at NASA. In fact, NASA is still
this
involved.
is very much like space because we feel like we're sort of on the surface of the sun here in your studio. So this is like...
Yes, you're right, George.
So this is sort of maybe part of the space training experience is we could take people into your studio
6 minutes
and then we could go outside in person. That'd be sort of like the dark side of the moon.
Does the plane have... I can imagine that there's got to be a lot more emphasis on windows. Because once you get all the way up there...
Big emphasis on windows.
You're going
Really?
weightless,
Absolutely.
You're taking pictures
Not little
back
tiny
of the
portholes?
More portholes. No, so that's a great point. I mean, obviously, a big part of the
It's all about
experience
seeing.
is about seeing.
Taking pictures.
And so seeing the beauty, the wonder of our planet from space, and also the black sky of the Milky Way, looking outwards, which you can't see from the surface of Earth. So that's a big part of it. Yeah, we did market research, and we found that people want a few things. One is they want the view. That's the most important thing. 2 is they want to be able to get out of their seats. 3, well, actually, 3 is number 1. 3, they want it to be safe. So, like, those are our priorities. That's what we want to make, like, a safe experience that gives people those two things.
I guess if safe wasn't the first priority,
that is really number 1.
Everybody.
Yeah.
I want to be safe.
I'd normally say that
I'd like to get out of my seat.
Right.
George, I'm reading your CV here, and you're very interesting. You've done a lot of different things. You were Chief of Staff at NASA. Prior to that, the NASA Presidential Transition Team. Executive Director of the National Space Society, Chair of the Reusable Launch Vehicle Working Group at the FAA.
And you forgot the most important thing, which is that I'm married to a woman who was born in Petaluma.
No kidding.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does she admit that?
All the time. She's very proud. Grew up in Santa Rosa, but
oh, that's neat.
Yeah, sorry to get you off track, but I
no,
just
that's
heard
good.
that you guys
Maybe I'll cross
are
paths
based
with
there.
her.
So this is something that you obviously have a long-standing interest in space.
I'm a space geek, absolutely.
But this is space tourism, and it's really kind of simple tourism. It's 6 minutes in weightlessness. What's the goal? This can't just be Richard Branson's fun space project. There must be more to it than this. Yeah?
Absolutely. So, I mean, you know, what we're doing, we actually think that getting thousands of people into space is a pretty important thing in itself. Like, that will radically transform our experience and our relationship with space. So, I mean, I think up to this point in time, you know, space has been this very elite thing.
It's for somebody else.
And you have to be supermen, you know, triathletes, PhDs. We're gonna change it such that almost anybody out there will know somebody who's been to space. Right now, that's very rare. And we're gonna bring it to a place where, you know, everybody who really wants to can go to space. And I think that'll be profound because, you know, astronauts who come back, they say that it's a profound experience for them. It changes them. And so just imagine if we have thousands of all these very successful people coming back to the planet. I think that'll affect planet Earth. But as you say, it's not the only thing. There are two other important things. One is sort of the whole field of scientific research. We'll be able to allow scientists and technologists to use the space environment much more frequently and much more cheaply than they ever have before.
Will you have some pro bono flights for research?
But actually NASA is already buying flights from us, and then they're going to
they don't have a shuttle anymore.
Too. Exactly. They're looking for other modes of transportation, and we're one of those ways. And then the other thing, I think the long-term thing that Richard is very interested is in point-to-point space travel. So like going from Paris to San Francisco in a half an hour.
I love it.
You know, which I think we'd all love, and which is very possible. It's hard, and it's not going to happen next year, but it is the logical evolution, I think, of what we're doing.
Now, somebody in our chat room, Titus, says he wants to book a flight and bring his dog along so he can stick his head out the window and have his ears flap. Is that going to be possible?
Well, for the right price, you know, Leo, we can talk. But actually, we do have a customer who's bought several seats who is very interested in bringing their dog. And as you know, Laika, first sort of mammal, I think, in space. So there's a you know, there may be precedent. We're not going to do it on the first flight, but maybe someday.
Will we learn from the science of this? I mean, or is this something we understand very well? It's easy to do, and it's
still a challenge. I mean, you know, for a lot of reasons. Building this vehicle is a challenge, and also the fact that we'll be taking people who are not triathletes, you know, to space. We'll be taking. I'm not in terrific shape.
Will there be a health requirement?
Well, I think we've done some testing, and we think almost anybody will be able to do this. People with really serious heart conditions probably shouldn't do
Pregnant women?
Pregnant women probably shouldn't, although they'd probably be fine. But yeah, so
will you experience a lot of G's on the
yeah,
initial
you'll experience
launch?
up to 6 G's on re-entry. So that's a fair amount.
On re-entry.
On re-entry, it'll be a little bit less on the way up.
Interesting.
Up to 4 on the way up.
Wow. Okay.
That's actually that was going to be my next question. You explained how the plane would get the rocket up to a certain point, then the rocket does its thing.
Right.
How do you land? Rockets come back down.
That's a great
doesn't
question.
have that plane anymore.
So we, our spaceship has wings. So all we do is we come to a glide landing, which is one of the safety factors.
The shuttle landed that way.
Yeah, exactly. The shuttle did the same thing.
It's not powered, or is it powered?
It's unpowered when it comes back in. Yeah, just like the shuttle. So, but we think wings are the way to go because it's just more safer.
Interesting.
Safer to have wings.
Do you ever see
sort of
it being obviously 200,000?
Safer to have wings. I agree.
Yeah.
You don't want to be ballistic. You'd kind of like to have some control.
Better with wings.
It's always
We're getting
better
some
with wings.
T-shirts made up.
Speaking of which, any honeymoon couples signed up?
That's a great question. In fact, my wife and I bought the first tickets to do a honeymoon a few years ago. Now, we may let someone else do that eventually because we'll be flying in the test flight program, but delayed honeymoon. But other than us, we've got folks who want to get married in space, who want to celebrate their honeymoons. I think that this is going to be like a nice little cottage industry of people celebrating. No, I haven't done it yet.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm still looking forward to it.
You're just on the list.
Yeah, hopefully next year. We'll see.
Very cool. Is obviously what you said, I think, is absolutely true about getting people's interpretation, impressions of what's out there in space. Just radically different once more and more people are able to experience it.
Right.
Obviously, $200,000 is cost prohibitive for the majority of anybody who would like nothing more than to go into space.
Right.
I mean, could the prices ever come back down? If you sign up enough people and you have multiple flights per day.
Absolutely. I mean, I think over the next 10 years, the prices will come down. They probably won't come down for the first few years.
Right.
So, you know, if you want to be in the first 1,000 people to go into space, now's the time to buy a ticket. But over time, you know, keep in mind, the first flights across the Atlantic in real adjusted dollars, whatever that means, was $65,000, $85,000.
Wow.
So, and now you can get it for $250 on special, and you know, with some taxes. So, you know, this is sort of the way things go in transportation. They start off at this higher level, and then they come down. Keep in mind that right now, if you want to go to space, there's only one option. You go to the Russians, and it costs $65 million.
And you have to live in ISS.
And you have to do 6 months of training. So, like, this is a radical shift already.
Yeah.
There's more to go, but like, this is a radical shift already.
Is this similar to the Spaceship One, the Burt Rutan trajectory in every respect? It's the X Prize.
Yeah, it really is. It's sort of the same thing, but a bigger vehicle.
Interesting.
Yeah. Using many of the same technologies. The feathering technology, air launch, hybrid rocket motor. You're clearly he's up on his space stuff. It's
pretty exciting. Do you take off and land in Los Angeles?
We're going to take off and land at a place called Spaceport America in southern New Mexico. So the state of New Mexico views like commercial space as a growth industry. Like, you know, they have these other economic development efforts, and one of them is space, commercial space. So they've built a spaceport. We're the anchor tenant. Costs $209 million down there. And it's a fabulous facility, so we'll be operating from there.
Wow, that's great.
That raises the question. At $200,000 a flight, is there any profit at all in this, or is that pretty much what it costs to do this?
We think that it will be, we know actually, that it will be a very successful business once we go into commercial operation. The challenge with space businesses is, like, maybe unlike an internet business, is that you have this huge amount of upfront capital that you need to invest. And so obviously we'll need to work our way through that, but it'll be a very good business once we go into commercial operation.
Really? That's interesting. Yeah, it makes sense. I don't think Richard Branson would do something that isn't going to be a good business in the long run.
Not at that level of spend.
That's a big commitment.
Exactly.
So you must be very excited to be part of this.
It's a great program. I think it's important for people to have dreams, big dreams, I think. Sure. And this is definitely one of those projects.
I guess you don't want space travel to become commonplace, but you do want people to become excited by it.
Yeah.
And dream about it.
Yeah, I think people going up, I think back to when I was a kid, like looking up at the night sky, the idea that we can actually really go up there is amazing. I mean, it's a real shift in how we'll view the universe.
I always wanted to be an astronaut from day one, from the first flight of, probably Gemini, maybe Mercury even. I was just a little kid at the time. And it's
you have to come fly with us sometime.
Well, in some ways it's been sad to watch, that dream kind of die, at least at the governmental level. And so it was very exciting to see private industry get involved in space.
Yeah.
And there's nobody else doing anything like this, is there?
There are a couple other companies, but we're sort of the best funded, and we have vehicles that are flying. And,
you're the closest.
I actually think that it'll be great to have other companies out there eventually. It means that there's a good business.
You don't want to be the only United Airlines
when you have competitors, right? I think we'll be operating for a few years before anybody else.
Will I wear a pressure suit when I do this, or?
We'll have a, do you know, what was the James Bond movie, like Goldfinger, or the one where it's like the space James Bond movie?
Moonraker.
Moonraker. Yeah, so it'll be much like that. So you don't wear a full pressure suit, but you'll sort of have a space suit.
So I don't black out. But it won't be like 6Gs, probably.
Yeah, but it'll be fairly flexible, and we're designing it for a shirt sleeve environment, so you won't have to.
You won't need to breathe.
Wear a helmet. Be sort of like like a plane. Where you can move around the cabin without.
And the pilots will be
gloves and stuff like that.
2 pilots?
2 pilots, yeah.
And they'll be in the kind of the front, or will I be able to watch them work? Or?
They'll be on the front, and they'll be behind sort of a little bit of a partition. But
I would love to see what they're doing too.
Well, come on down sometime. We'll show you. But
for my 200,000, I mean, I want to watch them land the plane.
Yeah. Well, you will. I mean, literally, you'll be just looking at them, and they'll be, there. But you'll be able to see. It's not like, on a 737 where you have this like armored door separating you from the pilots.
Will I have to take off my shoes and get them scanned before I get on the plane?
Security is a big deal, obviously, but I think it'll be a little bit easier than
How big is the
SFO.
team, the flight team, who is in testing stages with these vehicles now?
So we have a contractor called Scaled Composites. They do great work, and they probably have 150 people that we're paying for now, and then we have about 150 people internal to our company.
Oh. That's awesome.
Let me ask, because there is some controversy over the environmental impact of these space flights. And I know one of the things that Richard Branson's wanted to do is make this green. Is it possible? I mean, there's quite a... How much fuel are you burning in this launch?
It's a tiny amount of fuel.
Really?
I mean, so just as a comparison, like the space shuttle burns 2 million pounds of solid rocket propellant. Incredibly toxic stuff, to be honest.
A lot of CO2 as well.
Yeah, 2 million pounds per flight. Yeah. So we'll burn 10,000 pounds to get to space. So it's a factor of 200 or more less per flight. you know, maybe someday if we get incredibly successful, you know, this will be an issue. But I think in the near term, it's going to be a pretty minor thing.
Yeah, it's funny, Leo, you and I have talked about the fact that you've always loved space and would like nothing more than to go into space, and I've always said, I'll just see when you get back.
Yeah, a lot of people are...
The whole thing scares me, but the more I hear about the experience I would have with Virgin Galactic, the more I think, well, that doesn't sound awful.
Yeah.
There's a...
That's what we're going to put on our T-shirts next. That doesn't sound awful. It doesn't sound awful.
But I might do that. Well, just
on the front it says it's better with wings, and on the back is it doesn't sound awful.
There, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Make one for her.
No, but I appreciate what you're saying, and I think a lot of people feel that way. Richard's going to fly on the first flight with his family members, with his 2 kids.
That's
and
a
so
good
we're
idea.
not going to fly until it's safe,
That's
obviously.
a very good idea.
Yeah.
And we really feel we're inspired to like open up space for the rest of us.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Project.
I think that's great.
It's a really neat project.
It's amazing. I
George.
can't believe you have so many people signed up already. Congratulations.
Thanks very much. Yeah.
Really appreciate your coming by, George White. So what brings you to the LeWeb conference?
They just invited me to give a talk, and we have an office in London. Our sales office is in London, and so it was easy for me just to pop over. And who wouldn't come to the surface of the sun for?
Thank you for joining us here on the sun surface. Should someone have an urge, where should they go if they would like to do this?
They just go to our website, which is virgingalactic.com, and there's a little form they can fill out. And
$20,000 deposit.
Exactly.
And the balance due on flight?
It'll be a little bit before the flight.
Okay.
We haven't worked it out.
Time to save up.
Months
We're thinking
like
a couple of years.
Yeah, a couple of years. Yeah.
Right.
No,
that's great. Thank you, George.
Really great to meet you guys.
Thanks, George.
Very nice to
Thanks
meet you.
so
The new
much
CEO
for
at
visiting
Virgin
us in the
Galactic.
sun.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I hope I
Thank
live
you.
2 years, and then I'll come fly with you. If I survive this.
You will.
Thank you,
Enjoy
George.
the rest of Paris.
We're gonna. You are watching TWiT live in Paris at LeWeb 2011. Sarah Lane and Leo Laporte. We're gonna take a little break right now and come back. When we do, you're gonna get interviewed by a Croat.
Am I?
Yes, you are.
Oh, good.
Ivan Brejak will join us in a few minutes.
Great.
Later on at 3 o'clock our time, and we are GMT +1, I think. So. That would be 3 o'clock would be 6 a.m. Pacific, 9 a.m. Eastern. Cedric Ingram, who is an old friend. You might have seen him on TWiT about a month ago. He is a broadcaster here in France. He does a show called Planet Cren, which is called Widescreen. Come on over. And Patrick Beja will also stop by. You know Patrick from TNT and many of other shows. Just come. Just come on. You don't have to duck.
You don't have to duck. I mean, if you just popped up, that'd be even weirder.
So,
sit down.
Ivan, is it Brejak? Brezek. Pick up the microphone, Ivan. You interviewed me last year at LeWeb. Exactly. You do a website in Croatia.
Yes, it's basically the TechCrunch of Southeastern Europe, or the Balkans.
So, what's your readership like?
They're geeks. They're
geeks?
They're very geeky. A lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of developers, designers. In a large part, they're also a lot like the readership of the TWiT network.
Okay.
So we have a couple of readers that are fanatical about This Week in Tech and TNT and everything. So
that's great.
Yeah.
So Ivan asked to interview you, Sarah. He's already talked to me.
He did.
Yeah.
But I said, I'm also interested in you're running a tech blog in Croatia, and I've actually heard from other people in the industry that Croatia is more of a hotbed for startups than you might think. And what is going on in Croatia that there's so much entrepreneurial action?
Well, actually, the thing is that the whole region, Serbia, Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia, it's all heating up because there's a new generation of entrepreneurs, like young developers, people who know their technology, who know how to create good apps, who finally know that they can create businesses because they've seen it. They've seen it in companies creating cool stuff in the UK, companies creating cool stuff in Ireland, in the US, of course. And because there were a couple of companies like Zemanta in Slovenia and Uberview in Romania who showed, okay, we can actually build a business here, they're far more ready to get into the startup game. But there are, unfortunately, problems for them because there's not enough capital, not enough angels, and there isn't enough expertise in terms of entrepreneurship.
Do particularly southeastern entrepreneurs feel that the venture capitalists or businesses aren't paying enough attention to what's going on? Because, of course, we're in Silicon Valley, and it's like there's a VC around every corner with a lot of money. Whether or not they're putting their money in the right places is not necessarily the point. The money's there. How do you get the people who have money to the people who need the money who have the great ideas?
Unfortunately, you're spot on. Let me just illustrate. There's one VC fund in the whole of Southeastern Europe that, for one thing, has the capital to invest in web startups, and the other that they understand web startups. So one fund. And when we organized to have a fund from Prague come to Zagreb, we had over 80 people come and pitch in one day.
Wow.
So there's a lot of interest. The problem is that most of the companies, and there are awesome companies like Spotty and Farmeron, they're very interesting. They have great ideas, but they don't have like the early stage capital. They wouldn't know what to do with the millions of dollars from, for example, Axel Partners. What they do need is like angel funding. They need like tens of thousands of dollars first. And
sometimes that's just very hard to come by.
Yeah, and on the other hand, you can, in most cases, you can't bootstrap. For example, basically the only way to get recurring like payments in Croatia is through PayPal, like in some normal manner. And the problem with that is that PayPal waits 30 days to pay a company in Croatia. So it's like, guys, how are we going to make money? And that's why most of them plan on, for example, basing their headquarters in Europe and London, or even moving to the States, because they see it as the only option.
Is London the other place that you would headquarter if you're not going to come to the States? As a general rule, more than a Paris, for example, or a Berlin, or a Madrid?
For entrepreneurs from Croatia and Serbia, I think yes, because it seems logical, because most of the funds who have invested in Eastern European startups are based in London. And there's a very, very important fact about London as well, is Seedcamp is based there. And Seedcamp, and I can't stress this enough, has been one of the players, like on the European scene, that has done the most. Like Carlos and Reshma and their team have done the most for Eastern European startups.
Wow.
Because it's just a problem of like having people who tell you, okay, you should do this, not this. Here are people from Google who can help you. Here's an investment fund who can help you. And it's like small things that really mean a lot, because most entrepreneurs from Croatia or Serbia or Bosnia can't come to LeWeb', for example. They can't meet you. They can't meet Leo. They can't meet Loic because it costs a lot. And it's like, what are they going to do? The only way is going to Croatia, and most VC funds, most entrepreneurs don't have the time.
Well, I wish I was a VC, because I'd love to come to Croatia. I heard it's beautiful.
You should.
I should just come anyway. Absolutely.
Both of you should.
Well, maybe we will.
So,
it'll be one of our TWiT conferences.
Your blog's in Croatian?
Yes, but we have an English version which is called netocratic.com.
Netocratic. Netocratic.
Yes.
Yes.
Netocratic.
Yeah.
And it's basically going to be a blog in English about Southeastern Europe.
Okay.
But is TWiT going to?
No, we're never doing a Croatian broadcast. but maybe we could help you out. I'm just wondering if that's part of the issue also, is just the language barrier. There's so many languages in a small geographic area that...
In the sense of the market, or in the sense of communication?
Well, both, but market especially. In other words, if I do a Croatian app, I'm going to have to localize it to...
Exactly.
Yeah.
The market-wise, Croatian companies can be local. Like they can, if they're in English, they're global. Yeah, they're just small companies. You have to be big. You have to be in English.
Right.
And if you want...
can you be in English and be a successful Croatian app?
And stay in Croatia?
Yeah.
To be honest, it's hard.
Yeah.
And for Croatia, I don't have the perfect example. For Serbia, I do have the perfect example, and that's a company called Nordius. They're based in Belgrade. They have 35 people. They've built a Facebook app, and actually web app called Web Game. It's a football manager. So like European football.
Yeah, soccer. We call it.
Soccer.
Yeah.
Yes.
We
We're the
call
only ones who do.
TWiT'11. It's the biggest web-based sports game in the world.
Wow.
And they're bootstrapped. No investment.
That's fantastic.
And that's a company I'd like to clone in each of the countries to have as an example.
Because it is possible.
It is possible. It's absolutely possible.
Yeah.
There's only a lack of expertise and making money. That's the
Right.
That's the biggest
Which
problem.
are both two very important things.
Yes.
Got to have expertise and then got to have money to continue to innovate.
So do they localize different languages in their Facebook app, and so that
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
it's
For
not
each
just
market.
Yeah, it's not in Serbian. It's got to be in every language.
There's an English app.
Yeah.
Of course, but there's like an Israel and French.
Right.
And
Everywhere
for companies,
football's played
exactly.
and loved.
Exactly. And for companies, for a company in Croatia,
right.
It's logical because we have the problems of not having things localized. So we're like,
Right.
yes, of course, we're going to localize for someone who has like 2 times the market share of.
And that's probably not as hard to do as some of the other issues that you face as a
No,
startup.
that's the easy bit.
Get somebody who's native and fluent in that language, and
yeah, students or whatever can even do it, and that's not a problem.
Well, should we have Yvonne interview me up
I'd love
here?
to, and then I'm going to go out.
And
there,
try
and
to-
I'm going to round up some people. I said we'd have Sigrid Ingram in about half an hour.
About half an hour,
Patrick
yes.
Beja. Tomorrow we've got a good lineup as well. TaskRabbit, Leah Busk is going to stop by. SoundCloud's Alexander Leung. The Scobalizer will be here. Bill Gross from Idea Lab will be here. He's going to be fantastic. Ben Parr, formerly of Mashable, is here. We'll find out what he's up to. And from Evernote, Phil Lieben will join us. You're going to do iPad Today with me.
Yes, that's on Friday.
Will we feed that here?
Yes.
Okay.
It all comes through here.
Okay, it'll be the sweaty iPad today.
It'll be sweaty iPads, lots of
We
fingerprints.
also hope to do a TWiT here. MG, you, me, Brent Hoberman, Loic, and others will stop by. And Marco Tempst will also be here on Friday. So we've got a big 3 days planned.
And those are actually just what we had figured out before we left.
And we see people,
we
we've been
knew
running into
that
people.
There'd be, we saw 10 people walking 10 feet
Some
earlier
amazing
before
people.
we got
I
in
already
here.
saw Dave Morin from Path was here. We hope to get him on stage. Unfortunately, Mike McHugh from Flipboard is leaving, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. We're going to see if we can get him.
It'd be great. He's wonderful, and you're obviously very bullish on that
I am a
new
huge fan of the new
Flipboard app for the iPhone.
So I'll leave you two to have a good interview, and I'm going to see if I can find anybody else out here, and I'll be right back.
Yeah, you can cool off.
Welcome back to TWiT Live in Paris at LeWeb'11. Leo Laporte here. Sarah Lane is out getting her picture taken for the cover story of a Croatian tech crunch. She'll be back in a moment, but meanwhile, I wanted to say hello to Greg. What's your last name? Eisenberg, right?
Yes,
yeah.
sir.
Talk right into that microphone there.
Yes, sir.
One of the things that LeWeb is famous for is introducing startups from all over the world to the rest of the world, to American entrepreneurs, venture capital, and so forth. And they have a little startup pit over in the next room. But Greg is not here for that. He's here just to look and to watch and to learn. Welcome, Greg.
Thank you.
It's good to see you.
You know, sometimes I find it's good to get out of the office, you know.
You're from Montreal.
From Montreal, yeah.
So tell me about Wall Street Survivor.
Right, so we started out with an idea. We looked at, I'm a big fan of Yahoo Fantasy Sports. And we said, why don't we bring that model to the stock market? So we went ahead, and for a few years, we built a real-time stock market simulator. Fake cash, companies
so
are real.
I'd sign up and I'd have, what, $10,000 to play?
Yeah,
How
so you
much?
sign up, you get $100,000.
All right, let's go. Let's go big.
And what we do is actually we give actual money to the top people. So if you come first, second, or third, you'll get, you know, $1,000, $500.
Is that legal?
It's legal, yeah.
It's not like gambling.
It's not like gambling.
It's a skill-based.
It's skill-based. If it's like gambling, then you got to put all the hedge fund managers in jail, right?
Right. I guess you're right. So I come in, I get staked $100,000. Is there a fee?
It's absolutely free to join.
Okay.
You know, we have 400,000 users. We were just rated #1 stock market learning game by Mashable.
It seems like a great idea. So I go in and I'm using real stock market results, real fundamentals, real companies.
Yeah.
It's just like playing the stock market with funny money.
Exactly. And actually, our technology is so robust that we can actually basically hook it up through an API and power, you know, the TD Ameritrades of the world. And
in fact, you do that.
And in fact, you know, one of our businesses is that actually powering different companies such as, Scottrade, TD.
Was that a surprise? Was that like a secondary effect of this company?
Well, that's it, yes. Sometimes you come into a business and you don't necessarily know the business model. You have an idea, but, it just happened, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So you have a secondary revenue stream.
Yeah, but the real opportunity we see is investing for a lot of people is like a black box.
Right.
And, financial advisors and people like that have kept it in a black box.
Right.
So, and if you want to learn about the stock market, it's not necessarily fun. I don't want to go in a textbook and read 400 pages. So we said, why can't we make it better?
Do you make it a game, or what is it? What does the interface look like? Is it
right?
Do I look like a day trader with a bunch of screens and things going on all the time? Or?
Right. Okay. So I'll tell you a bit about the story actually. So the current WallStreetSurvivor.com, we really positioned it as a contest model. Okay. We really said, fake cash to win real money. And what we learned is that 80% of our users were there to learn. They didn't care about the real money. They wanted to learn.
You thought it would be, and this is one thing that we're hearing this story again and again, what you thought it would be changed when you let it out in the real world. Your users told you a different story. They wanted to learn. They weren't there to win money.
Exactly. And in fact, if you learn, in the end, you're going to
make money.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
So what we did about a year and a half ago is we looked at what are the other ways that people learn about the stock market. So we said, okay, people learn on textbooks. No one wants to learn like a textbook.
Boring.
I know me, I can only read 140 characters. That's my limit. So textbooks is out of the picture. Then there's sites like Investopedia. And Investopedia is really just an encyclopedia for investing.
Right.
And then there's, some simulators, but not many that are real-time like ours.
Right.
So we said, okay, let's reposition Wall Street Survivor as kind of like the Code Academy for investing, where we take you through the process of understanding investing. You earn badges, you earn rewards, stuff like that. And that relaunch Wall Street Survivor, we call it V4, is now in private alpha. So if you go to wallstreetsurvivor.com/getv4, you can put yourself on the coming soon of that alpha. And it's kind of in order of, in the order we let people in. And now we have a small group using that new version.
So V4 it sounds like it's very different.
Oh, it's absolutely different.
Yeah.
It's completely...
I'm looking at it now.
Oh,
yeah.
it's completely different.
It does. It looks completely different.
Yeah.
Understanding the stock market is really freaking hard.
It is. It really is.
That's interesting. You're a Canadian company, and yet you're doing the U.S. Stock Exchange.
That's correct.
The New York Stock Exchange. Do you do NASDAQ? Do you do any of the other exchanges?
Yes, we do.
Okay. But not... do you do European exchanges? Japanese exchange?
Not yet. We do, some European, some Asian.
You do the FTSE and okay.
Some of the ETFs.
Okay. Oh, you do ETFs.
We do ETFs, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you really can learn a lot. Do you have some success stories? Do you have anybody out there who's learned how to invest at Wall Street Survivor and is now making big bucks?
Sure. So we get a lot of people sending kind of emails saying, thank you. So. There's one guy who did, he actually was getting like 200% return on Wall Street Survivor. And the beauty about Wall Street Survivor is you notice that the same people are getting these high returns. Right. So I actually sent him an email and I said, hey, man, like, you're doing something right.
It's interesting that he's still playing the game, even though he's now doing it for real money as well. He must like Wall Street Survivor. He must kind of like, is he polishing his skills?
The thing is, you always want to practice, even if you're, a hockey player.
Maybe even try some scenarios. Are people trying theories about, I know sometimes people have some very technical analysis that they're doing, maybe a formula. They would try it out on something like Wall Street Survivor first.
Yeah, exactly. It's training wheels.
Yeah.
It's training wheels for different...
No cost.
No cost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you guys are in Montreal. How has it been? Now, I have to say, the way I met Greg was I was walking down into the startup pit, and he said, you inspired me to get into technology.
Yeah.
So tell me about that.
So I remember it must be in 2001.
Yeah.
I was watching, I guess,
Tech TV,
the Screensavers, you, and anyone who knows me, you and Kevin Rose, the guys who...
He was just here. You just missed him.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah.
So the guys who, kind of got me into, I guess, technology, programming, that sort of thing.
You were 12 years old.
I was 12 years old. And I started, what I started doing was kind of creating sites, communities online.
No kidding.
And kind of selling them and doing that thing.
Even at that age?
At that age, yeah.
Wow.
And actually, I created you know, some large sites, and really got into. I was one of the early social media kind of pioneers. I did social media consulting for, you know, the first social media strategies for the government of Canada, Oakley, NASCAR.
No kidding.
At a young age, I remember I was in, I must have been 17 years old, and I was sitting at the Molson Coors office in Toronto with all the top VPs, and I sit down, and I'm pitching them social media, which, by the way, they thought was a fad. And
everybody thought it was a fad, didn't
thought
they?
it was a
Yeah.
fad.
Oh, this Twitter thing will never last.
And I'm sitting down there, and I'm nervous as hell, right? And
you're a kid.
One of the VPs walks in and says, "What are you doing here?
You're not even old enough to drink our beer.
What are you doing here?" Exactly. I said, "Oh, I'm here. I'm the guy pitching social media."
Right.
And then he's like, "It's not funny. Please, like, you know, I don't know who you are,
Leave.
but get out." So, you know, it was tough being a teen entrepreneur.
But I think there's an advantage, too, because I think companies, when they say now, as they do say,
yeah.
oh, my God, we've got to have a social media strategy, they're going to go to younger people because they presume that anybody over 25 has no idea what's going on. So you do have a little bit of an advantage.
For sure, but now I say I'm a dinosaur.
You are.
I'm a dinosaur.
at 22.
Yeah.
Let's bring Philippe in as well. Philippe, why don't you come up? Because I want to talk a little bit about the entrepreneurial climate in Canada. So you're in Montreal. Was it, first of all, a disadvantage or an advantage, you think, starting this up in Montreal?
So I think it would be appropriate for you to talk about the advantages and for me to talk about the disadvantages.
Take the microphone.
Because this is an ongoing debate between Phil and I.
It's Philippe Telio, is that how you say it?
That is correct.
All right.
Yeah.
And you do a startup event. You just had your first one in Montreal in July. You're going to have another one coming in July.
Correct.
What's that called?
So it's called the International Startup Festival.
And is it like a demo or is it like a TechCrunch Disrupt? What is the model?
It's an event for entrepreneurship, so to stimulate, motivate, and get entrepreneurs exposure.
Kind of like LeWeb'.
Kind of like LeWeb' to a certain extent, and a little bit like Demo as well, I guess, to a certain extent. But at the same time, we aim to bring it in a fun atmosphere. So we call it a festival because we combined with Just for Laughs, which is the big comedy festival.
Oh, yeah.
And so we held a conference matched in with a comedy festival.
Oh, how fun. What a great idea.
It was fun, yeah.
So I was asking Greg, you know, you're from Montreal, I presume, right?
Yes.
So you're just going to start it up wherever you live, wherever you are. But I was wondering if that felt like a disadvantage or an advantage. And he said, I should ask you.
Well, there's lots of advantages to being in Montreal, there's no doubt. I mean, advantages from a resource perspective. We've got very qualified resources, lots of universities, but less expensive than Californian resource. We also have fantastic tax credit benefits. So for companies that set up,
oh, that's interesting.
They can get
the federal government wants. Do you call it the federal government in Canada?
We
okay.
do.
The federal
and provincial.
and provincial. The government wants startups, and so they give you incentives to start new businesses.
Well, they want a lot of research and development. So there's money that's thrown at any company really doing research and development, pure research and development.
And how about the venture capital environment there? And that's one of the things I hear complaints about here is that there isn't a well-established kind of system of VC funding.
It's getting stronger. It certainly hasn't been our strongest point.
Yeah.
We do have a lot of new early-stage funds being set up. And now we've got American investors that are coming north of the border.
Looking for
startups. The valuations are much more reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
And the talent is just as good. So
interesting. Yeah. How old is Wall Street Survivor?
It's about 4 years old.
And you started it?
I didn't start it. My partner Rory Olson started.
Rory started it. You came on to help him market it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And we're going to get that laptop out of the way there. All right. And would you consider going to Silicon Valley or New York City? I mean.
So Leo, my dream is to start a startup.
Yeah.
That changes the world. As corny as that sounds.
I think that's the only dream to have. I like it.
I believe that the only way to disrupt a really big space, i.e., payments like PayPal did, or gaming like Zynga did,
right,
or any of those big spaces,
right,
you have to be down there, and you have to be with those people. And I think that, as much as I love Montreal,
it's a little discouraging for somebody who's not in Silicon Valley to hear that news.
It is. my great-grandparents were born in Montreal. My grandparents were born in Montreal. My parents were born in Montreal. My friends are in Montreal. I love the city. But at the end of the day, I need to achieve my dream because I won't be able to fall asleep if I won't.
You agree with this, Phil?
There's no doubt that being in San Francisco, it's the Mecca. It's where the people are. It's where the networks are. It's where the money is.
There is
so it's
some
a lot
value
easier.
there. Yeah.
There's value, but I believe that other cities, yes, can create ecosystems. And with the whole distribution of information and content, it's certainly possible.
It's
I think
changing.
There are other ways to do it.
It's changing. It's no longer the epicenter. But I think, Kevin Rose was just here, and one of the things he said, which I found interesting, is that by being in San Francisco, you can sit down with people who doing similar things to you and solve problems together. How did you solve this network, backlog? How did you optimize for this or that? And there seems to be this sense of sharing, despite the fact that you may even be competitors. People will talk, and you're all in the same boat.
Completely agreed. And I think, I make it a point to go down to the Valley very frequently. And every time I go to the Valley, I hang out at Coupa Cafe in Palo Alto. And I always say, there are more tech entrepreneurs in Coupa Cafe doing more interesting things than there are, tech entrepreneurs in Montreal.
Isn't that interesting?
And the networking I do at Coupa Cafe has always been better in Montreal. And, Phil and I disagree.
We do disagree on this point.
Publicly and privately.
Yeah, Greg is actually one of the inspirations for why I created Startup Festival, because Greg at one point tweets out, this is January of this year, that Montreal could never be a top 3 web city. And I took that up as a little bit of a challenge. I don't work for the Canadian government. I don't work for the city of Montreal. I'm not in tourism. But I do believe that you can create tech centers outside of the Valley. There's no doubt, to Greg's point, that when you go to the Valley, you can meet a whole bunch of people in a very short time frame. You can even bump into them on the street. It's like going to New York and seeing an actor. It's possible.
There's also the thinking is going on there. But I don't think I would agree with both of you in a sense, because I look at when I was in Toronto, we would go to Toronto every month for a week. There was a very active community and growing community. And I do remember going to Vancouver expecting that, and it wasn't there. So I think that you can do as you're doing. I think you can cultivate that. There are places like Tallinn, Estonia, where they have really cultivated that. And you know what? It's a great thing for an area to do, because it's a good industry. It's clean. It takes smart people. If there are a lot of smart people there, it's a real opportunity for them. It's nice to meet you both. So, Philippe, where can I find out more about Startup Festival?
Well, on Twitter, of course, at StartupFest.
Okay.
Or startupfestival.com.
That's great. Good luck. July, huh?
Correct.
It might be a good time to visit Montreal.
Absolutely
this
would be.
year.
We'd love to
I would
have
love
you
to
there.
do that. And if people want to get started investing and they want to do it without wasting their own money, they can. You still have prizes, though. You're not giving away.
We do. I would say go to wallstreetsurvivor.com/getv4 GETV4.
Okay.
Get on that coming soon of the new site.
Okay.
And January 2012, we're opening up the doors, and
it's exciting.
Yeah.
I'm there right now. wallstreetsurvivor.com.
And at Greg Eisenberg on Twitter to hear me talk.
To say hi.
Yeah.
All right. Nice to meet you both. Thanks for coming by.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You're watching LeWeb live from Paris, 2011. All right.
Here we are, live again.
I was
Leo
going to give
off getting
Cedric asked for a banana. He says he feels like a zoo. We're in a zoo here because there are people looking through the window. Welcome back to LeWeb 2011.
2011.
TWiT in
live from
Paris.
Paris.
Leo Laporte with Sarah Lane.
TWiT in Paris. How'd I get so lucky?
It's a good deal. And a long friend of the show is here, Cedric Ingran. He is the host of Plein Écran here in France.
French, Leo, you know that.
I finally realized, because I'm always trying to pronounce it, as best I can. And somebody told me, don't try so hard, because the American accent's cute.
Absolutely. So it actually goes the other way around. If you're a French guy and you want to head on girls in the US,
French accent is adorable.
You should better keep the French accent, because it is so lovely.
Oh, yeah.
It's much more romantic.
Absolutely. I mean, and we work hard to try and speak English well. No. I mean, we don't, because
your English is perfect.
Thank you.
Your English is perfect.
It's only because I
But
get to use
it's a very adorable accent.
Oh,
also.
thank you, Sarah.
So Plein Écran means big screen.
Full screen.
Full screen.
Yeah.
And it's on when?
It's on Saturdays at 2 p.m. on LCI and in reruns throughout the week.
So
and
that's a national channel?
Absolutely.
So
we're like the French CNN.
Yeah, you're the most famous geek in France.
It's your mileage may vary.
But who else? Come on.
There's lots of people. There's podcasters. There's actual reporters. You know who do like. Yeah, there's Patrick Béja, who's off screen. There's
who went like this. What?
There's Manuel, who's the biggest blogger in France.
Oh, really? Well, we got to get him up here too.
75 on Clout. What can you do? There you go. So, well, no, but I mean, what persistently amazes me is that none of the other TV channels have picked up on the fact that technology is important and cool to cover.
They think it's a foreign language.
I don't know. I mean, 10, 15 years ago, I understood because, I mean, it was a little harsh. It was a little poor in pictures. Getting stuff actually on the air that was, enticing and interesting was a little difficult, but we still managed to do it. But now there's so much. I mean, come here, see the startups, see the demos.
Amazing, isn't it?
And I mean, what has happened in the last 10 years? Oh, we're getting air.
It's so nice.
Yes, we've got a fan just on stage.
Oh, we have a fan.
It's so nice. We have to just take a moment to thank the electric
gods. Because we don't really know who set up this studio, but he didn't have the hosts in mind. And yeah, what has happened in the last 10 years is that technology has, like intruded into people's lives. Half of the people in France have smartphones now. Everybody uses the internet. And what I usually say is that when people say, well, why do you do technology coverage? I say, well, come on, what's the single biggest thing that has changed your life in the last 10 years? It can't have been politics or the economy. I mean, in a good way, of course.
It's technology.
It's technology,
Absolutely.
Of course. And so now people know what broadband is, what apps are, and how it influences their daily life and how it's changed the way we work and live and play.
Now, the last time you were out at the TWiT studios, you brought me a Minitel.
Yes.
So, and I think that's kind of interesting because that shows that there was a great interest in technology in France. When was that, 15 years ago?
Oh, the Minitel was 1984.
Wow. That's a long time ago.
That just shutting it down now.
years ago.
27 years ago. We used to use it for directory assistance and getting
the idea
train
was
tickets.
the phone company put it in there, and instead of a telephone book, you'd have that.
Exactly.
But then somebody told me that quite a few companies made a lot of money on Minitel,
Oh,
particularly
with services
adult
of the
services.
adult kind.
Yeah.
Not adult services, but I would say dating services.
Yeah.
Which were extremely popular and which you paid by the minute. I mean, it was, remember Prodigy and these things where it was pay as you go.
I think that shows that you guys are not behind in any way. I mean, that was in how many homes? Was that in every home?
Oh,
almost every home.
Yeah, tens of millions of Minitels.
So you had the internet in the '84, really?
Nah, I wouldn't call it the internet.
Yeah, well, a poor man's internet, a simple internet.
Just like you, we had to wait till 93, 94 to get our first ISPs, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
But the thing is, and I remember, I mean, there was a switchover when the web came over, and France Telecom was actually thinking about how do we do an internet terminal? But I mean, the internet terminal was the PC, and now it's the mobile phone.
Right.
And of course, I mean, things have moved along, but France hasn't really managed to I mean, they had managed to catch that lead way back when. They really haven't managed to hang on to it.
Yeah.
They even tried to distribute the Minitel abroad. I remember there was a pilot, a trial, something in Houston, Texas, with Minitels in the late 80s. That was crazy.
Didn't work, I guess.
Not really.
All right, speaking of phones, this has been driving me crazy. You have in your hands what everybody agrees is going to be the next big thing.
Yeah, well, I would say it is the best phone out there right now.
This is the
Galaxy Nexus.
Galaxy Nexus running Ice Cream Sandwich.
Absolutely.
It's coming
Samsung/Google.
I haven't seen the latest news, but the last I heard is that it was coming to the States on Friday, December 9th, to Verizon as a CDMA carrier using 4G. But you guys have had it for a week or two, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. And I used to have a Galaxy S2 before.
Me too. I love my S2.
And I loved it, really.
So is this better?
And, oh, yeah. Well, the screen is 1280 by 720,
so it's 4.6 inch?
Yes, except they say, oh, is the screen bigger than on the S2? And not really, because what happens is that you have the soft buttons at the bottom of the panel now that take up the extra space. So it doesn't really change the experience.
It's more flush.
Absolutely, and there are no set buttons, so applications can actually use that space.
And it's exactly the same weight as the iPhone.
Totally.
But because it's dispersed differently, it feels lighter.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It also feels a little plasticky, I think.
It is. But I mean, I can do that. That's the point. That's how I used to demo the S2. You know, my iPhone, my iPhone.
You couldn't do that with an iPhone.
Yeah, my iPhone user friends. Yeah, my iPhone user friends would come up to me and say, "How is it better than the iPhone?"
You want him to do it again? He says, "Do it again." The director wants you to do it
I can throw it on the ground.
No, don't throw it.
Really?
Just drop it.
Okay, there you go. 1, 2, 3.
Oh!
There you go.
Oh!
That hit a wheel.
All right, let me see.
That hit a wheel.
Did it break anything?
No, of course not.
It's
of course
fine.
not.
Of course not. That's the bonus of having a plastic phone. But it's gorgeous. And what has really changed is the software. Everyone is concentrating on the hardware. This is the new OS, and it's very sweet. They've added a little eye candy into it, which is always nice. But the transitions between pages of apps, between your icons and there are still a few things like contextual menus that change from app to app that I haven't quite mastered. But I mean, I've had it for less than 24 hours now. So, but it is a beautiful phone. The screen quality is amazing. You need to try the camera. The camera is so fast.
Go ahead, take a picture.
Don't take one picture. Take 5 pictures.
Yeah, well, there was
and you'll see.
when they showed this at the event in was it Berlin? I can't remember. Anyway, they showed this at an event, and somebody, I think Engadget or somebody, took an iPhone 4S and they did a time trial, and this was faster than what is the iPhone 4S is the fastest camera I've seen yet. Very nice. Very nice.
It is extremely snappy. Wow. This I'd never seen.
I have one waiting for me when I get home.
There you go.
But it's
I still think the camera is a little better on the S2, but
yeah, I have to say the camera on the 4S is amazing.
Leo, Uncle Leo, I have a gift for you.
Oh yeah,
it's not another Minitel.
Okay.
When we visited back in September, we did an interview and a whole walkthrough of your studios. And what came out on the air was actually something like 5 minutes because it's TV. Right. But we have a full 15-minute visit of the TWiT studios.
I would love that.
It will be online by Friday.
Oh,
and
well, I'll tweet it.
I'll put up the link on Twitter.
Okay, good.
So it's actually Uncle Leo walking you through the studios and the whole setup upstairs and downstairs.
And you should become everyone's uncle.
I'm better. I don't know, but he has a great camera guy who did a fabulous job. Guillaume is Guillaume.
It's Guillaume.
Yeah. Fabulous, and so it was really. I can't wait to see that. Thank you.
It's always a pleasure to visit, and that's actually what I said on the show at the end.
I get more coverage from French television than I do from U.S. television.
Oh, come on!
And it's all thanks to Cedric.
Oh. And every time I visit, when we leave, it's like, why exactly am I not doing this yet?
You could.
Well, there's
not as much money in it. Let's put it that way.
And you wouldn't get
what? and you wouldn't get restaurant invitations from
I'll show you my paycheck. You show me yours.
So, what have you seen at LeWeb'? Are you excited about anything? Do you know anything that's coming up here?
I actually, what I do every year, because all the conferences are online, live, and free, and you can get them on YouTube.
I love that LeWeb' does that, and I know people who are watching this stream probably know this already, but if you go to LeWeb'.net, you can see there's 3 streams. There's
Absolutely.
The plenary conference 1,
and
plenary conference 2.
if you miss something, it'll all be on YouTube shortly.
Yeah, he does a great job.
So I'm still amazed that there's so many people in the conference room, because I would guess that this is not why people come to LeWeb', actually, except maybe to go see Eric Schmidt or people like that.
Who was just on stage.
What's interesting is all the startups.
Yeah.
The startup competition is great.
Isn't it great?
It's usually what I cover for the show, because it's the only chance that we'll have to see these guys. And then all the people walking around the rooms with a little laptop or iPad who can just whip it out and demo something, saying, "Oh no, I need to show you something." So this could last a week, and I'd come for a week. It's just so much fun, and you have to say, even when you know what U.S. conferences look like, this is so well organized.
Not only that, but I think we have conference fatigue, at least in our neck of the woods. There's nothing bad to say about any particular conference. It's just, it's like a conference a month. They all seem to be covering the same stuff.
Yeah.
Same general topics. A lot of the same speakers. And there's something about LeWeb that stands out to me, because it's not only very interesting speakers, and yes, many of them are return speakers or return guests, but there's so much of an international contingency that's so fascinating for people like us, because
it's great.
you know, we don't want to just cover Silicon Valley.
Sure.
I mean, that's easy, and there's a lot of that going on, and there are a lot of us doing it, but it's not even just, oh, what's going on in France. It's what's going on in Croatia, and what's going on in Russia, and the Middle East, and Israel, and everyone seems to come to LeWeb and have a really positive attitude about it all. So I love this conference.
The fact that we're in Paris probably helps.
Yeah.
There was a debate last year as to, you know, should LeWeb go to London next year, and even people from Silicon Valley would go, no, keep it in Paris,
keep it in Paris.
Oh, yeah. Because then if you're a speaker, you get to go to all these events in, well, let's just say very nice restaurants around the city.
Nice restaurants, and people can complain about weather in Paris in December, but it's still Paris. I mean, snow, rain, sleet, I'm still happy to be here.
It's always
I don't have to tell you about shopping.
No,
I like this time of year in Paris.
I
It's
do
all lit
too.
up and there's a Christmas
It's
trees.
Christmassy, and there's mulled wine on the Champs.
The puppets at the Galerie Lafayette.
I love
That's
it.
wild. Have you
I
seen
know.
those windows yet?
Yeah, I live here.
Oh my goodness! Oh, you live here. You've got to go. It's incredible. You will
They're
not believe
puppets,
it.
It's machines.
The machines, they're going up and down. It's incredible. No, it's you know, it's the same in New York, where the store windows are always a treat. But this,
Sure.
it's fun to see that.
As visitors, it's
Yeah.
pretty beautiful.
I guess anything else that you are excited about?
I hope
Anything
that
we
the event
should-
shines a light also on the French startup scene, which
It's
has become
getting more and more
extremely
vibrant. Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I heard 6 months ago that there was more money raised in Paris than in London now.
Wow.
Which is totally surprising. And I guess I would advise you that there's a little space next to the conference called Le Camping, which is like a, because Le Camping is a startup accelerator that's actually hosted within the walls of the former stock exchange
No
in
kidding.
Paris.
Right
at
here.
the Bourse.
Le
Yeah,
Camping.
absolutely. And they have a space here. They have 12 startups. That changes every 6 months. And it's, it is one of the shiniest examples of what France can do for startups.
I think that's one of the things that's worked so well in the States, starting with
all the incubators and
I'm trying to remember the biggest one. They do
500 startups.
I'm getting a little sleepy now.
500 startups.
No.
No.
Paul Graham's Y Combinator.
Oh, Y
thank you.
Combinator.
Y
sure.
Combinator.
And but there are a lot of them now,
Absolutely.
Techstars and so forth. And I think this is
Absolutely.
a very good way to get the knowledge base that exists now and how to do a startup out there.
It used to be that if you wanted to have a startup in France, you'd be pretty much on your own. And events like these and accelerators and incubators, and I hope to an extent, media actually covering this whole space and this whole ecosystem are starting to build something that is, virtuous.
Yeah.
And
why is it important, do you think, that startups be fostered?
Well, because there was I heard something from the president of Microsoft France recently who said they surveyed business school graduates a few years ago saying, what do you want to do? And half of them wanted to go into finance, and the other half wanted to go into civil service.
Let's get them out of finance, because that's just causing more problems.
Well, there you go. And now 35 or 45% of them want to actually start their own company when they leave school,
the way to
which
do it.
is actually the right time to do it,
Yeah.
because there's not much of a financial burden. You don't have
Right.
a family yet. I mean, what do you have to lose?
Right.
Also, isn't France have a plethora of great engineering schools?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, this is one of the things we do right.
So they've got the skills.
Sure, totally. But you need the business skills that go with it, and maybe the product skills and the ideas. But I'm still amazed that there's only one direct flight that does Paris to San Francisco. There's actually 2 now in the summer.
We were all on Air France 83. We were all on that flight.
My second home.
Yeah. Pretty amazing. You come to San Francisco a lot. Why is that you come so much?
Why? Why do
Yeah.
you think? I cover technology, so half of it happens.
You have to go there.
Happens on
I see more
either side of
I see more
the
of Cedric
Pacific.
than I do of many other tech journalists.
Yeah,
Seriously,
sure.
I see you at E3. I see you
Sure.
at all the conferences.
Yeah, I'll be at CES next month,
Yeah,
hopefully.
yeah.
That's where it happens.
Yeah.
And it's so, I mean, as much as I like Paris and France is my country and I love it, Silicon Valley has this totally vibrant quality and this totally different business culture.
Yeah.
here, if you have a particular piece of information that's important to you, you might not want to share it. That's the attitude usually in business. And everyone who's worked in Silicon Valley will tell you, half the time people will just give you their contacts and give you intros because what goes around comes around, and that's the way it works.
Got to collaborate.
Absolutely.
It's really amazing. It's an amazing
I guess this is somehow evolving in France too, and I'm glad to hear that. It means I won't have to move. I'm still thinking about trying to open an office for LCI in San Francisco. I have my eyes set on this little place in South Park, and
that's not a bad idea. We would welcome LCI with open arms.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and Plenacren.
Always
it's great
a
to see you, Cedric.
Thank
Cedric
you,
Ingrand from Plenacren. You can watch it every Saturday at 2 p.m. on LCI. And then again and again and again and again and again.
And online.
And online. And just what is the website?
Just Google Plein Écran.
Okay.
And you'll find a page with all the podcasts and the reruns and what have you.
Okay. Because we want to get that 15-minute version of the TWiT tour.
And follow me on
Guillaume
Twitter.
shot.
I'm Cedric on Twitter.
At Cedric.
Sure, at Cedric
Easy.
on Twitter.
Couldn't
That's
be
easy
easier.
enough.
That is a
Couldn't
good
be
one.
easier. All right. Is he at Guillaume?
No, he's at G de Lalande. It's you follow him, follow me, and find him. But Actually, come seek me out on Google+.
I love Google+, and I see you've been posting there quite a bit.
G+,
Yeah,
fan.
I think that's great. Thank you, Cedric.
Thank you.
Plein écran.
Shall I go?
Yeah, is that better? Plein écran. Out of here.
There you go. Do we cut to commercial?
No, there's no
No.
commercial. This is a commercial.
It never stops.
This is a long
We just
commercial.
talk.
We're going to bring Patrick Beja
Thank you,
up
Cedric.
here and wrap this up. This is
Come
TWiT
on
Live at
Come on up,
LeWeb'11.
Patrick B.
We are live
Hello
from
in person.
Paris, France, where it is 3:30 in the afternoon. It's a little earlier than that in the States, but we're glad you could tune in early for those of you who are watching live. And we are in the chat room if you want to say hello in the chat room. I'm paying attention to that as well.
I'm
And you closed yours down.
well, because of
You're kidding.
no. We'll work it out tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, that's
we'll
why
work
I
it out
have
tomorrow.
this. Okay, I understand
You
now.
guys know what I mean.
I understand
Someone
what you're
bring
saying.
a sticker.
Right.
So
yeah.
Patrick
I'm
Beja is a
gonna buy sticker
podcaster
tonight.
who makes regular appearances on our shows, including TNT. You're regular on
Yeah.
TNT. We've had you on TWiT many times.
I think you were on Forecast.
I was.
Current Geek Weekly. I think you've been on pretty much.
I'm not even sure I did Current Geek, but if
No?
I didn't, I'm going to talk to Scott.
You should.
Yes.
Frame rates.
I
Been on
haven't. We were talking about it with Tom a few weeks ago, and we were wondering why I hadn't been on Frame
Yeah,
Rate.
because you do a movie podcast, a very good movie
Absolutely.
podcast.
Thank you.
That's kind of the same subject that Frame Rate covers.
So, total friend of TWiT. I'm so
Absolutely.
glad you came by because there's so many of the remote guests that Skype into all of our shows on a regular basis, and I feel like I know everybody, but it's rare that I get to meet
actually,
you.
It's so strange, you know. It's the first time we actually meet in person.
You've
you and
never
I.
met?
No. And it feels like, you know, if I've had this happen a few times already, not even speaking with people, it's so strange that medium podcast that we're into, because you listen to someone doing a show, and they're so natural, they're so authentic, that after listening to them for, you know, a few months, you feel like you know them. And if they listen to you, they feel like they know you too.
Exactly.
So I've actually come across people that I had never met, that I was surprised to realize I had never met before.
Right.
Because you feel like you've hung out with them so much.
Exactly. Even if we hadn't been on the same show before, it was just meeting, you felt like you know them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the real strength of podcasting compared to traditional media, which is people who listen to the shows we do feel like they're part of a band of friends, right? So this is something that I really want to continue with the podcasts we do. And
You've done very well. You must be among the top podcasts in France.
In France, yeah. I mean,
the Phileas Club, Movalicious.
Right. Le Rendezvous Tech. And Upload, which I do with these two gentlemen and another one. So basically what we did a year and a half ago or so, we got together, all of my friends who were also doing podcasts, we got together and created that nowatch.net network. And now we are sort of, with our own little means, trying to be a mashup of mini TWiT and mini Revision 3. So we basically copy everything you guys do.
Good.
And do it in French.
Fantastic.
So, yeah.
I think that's great.
Very happy about the way things have been going.
That's great.
Yeah.
A mini TWiT in France.
Mini TWiT. So Le Rendezvous Tech is a roundtable. You guys sit around and talk. Tell me a little bit about that.
Basically, we get, well, you know, it's the again, it's the TWiT model. We get people from the French tech world. Loïc has been on a couple of times. Cédric is on very often. And we just discuss the tech news and try to sort of present it in a way that will allow people to know what's happening without having to go through every blog every day 15 times, you know?
Right.
Well, it also has the French perspective. So you could say, oh, it's a TWiT model, but of course, not only are you different people sitting around the table, but there's a different, I would assume that your take on a lot of these stories would have a different angle simply because they're different places.
Of course. We cover things always with the grain of salt of being French and having our own perspective. And we also cover, obviously, things that happen in Europe, maybe a little bit more than you guys would.
Sure.
We have very active, let's say it like this, active discussions about things like the Hadopi law and the 3 strikes rules and things like that.
Well, very close to home.
Yeah. And this is something that is a little bit unnerving for us because it seems that in the U.S., to an extent, the government sort of is closer to what's happening in the tech world than it would be in France. I know, President Sarkozy is trying to I don't know if it's to make it seem like he's interested or if he's actually interested.
Well, in fact, he's, was one of the first candidates, I think, in France to use social media. That's how Loïc Lemer got involved with him. He helped work on his campaign as a social media strategist.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, I mean, that's a big step forward.
Absolutely.
But you say it might be lip service.
Well,
he's not got the best reputation about the internet itself.
Yeah, I know that, that famous conference a few years ago at the EG8, a few months ago,
and Jeff Jarvis stood up and said, will you take the pledge to do no harm?
And he was a little bit hesitant to respond in that.
But I don't think he expected the question is probably the problem.
Probably not.
Yeah.
But the thing is, for something like SOPA that happened in the U.S., you got enough people to speak up, regular people and industry leaders.
87,000 people from Tumblr alone.
Exactly. To speak up and say this is a really bad idea. And in France, we have 2 different communities, or one community, which is the internet community, who knows that the 3 strikes law is technically not possible to implement properly and a bad idea altogether, to cut off internet access. But we don't seem to be able to reach the ones who will make the decision ultimately. So there's a little bit of frustration there. But overall, we have these kinds of discussions all the time, and it's very important.
Is it a fairly tight-knit community in France? I mean, it's a big country, but it seems like you all know each other.
Yeah.
Is that the case?
To the same extent that I think you guys all know each other.
Yeah.
The Silicon Valley is a smallish space.
It's a small area, yeah.
In France, you have mostly Paris, but a couple of people here will be very angry if I don't mention other, the fact that there are other parts of France that are active too. But in that way, yes, I think we're very tight-knit. We all know each other. We like each other quite a bit, which is, I think, a little bit different in the podcasting world from the blogging world, where, in blogs you...
Is everybody at everybody's throat in the blog world?
Sorry?
Huh? No, he's a blogger, right?
Yeah.
Everybody hates everybody else in the blog.
But he's also a podcaster. He does a very interesting podcast in French about the jobs in the tech world, trying to explain to the developer community or tech community, professional community, what those new and different jobs are. He did a show on SEO recently.
I think it's a very good idea,
It's really interesting. Yeah. So, and I really think, that might be my bias, but I really think that France, as a country, this is a little bit of what you were discussing with Cédric earlier, has an active tech community and tech mindset. I look at so in podcasts and the tech world in general, most of it is English, right? Anglo-Saxon. You have, the U.S. mainly, of course, but then the U.K. and Australia. And you hear news about all this. But then, if you go to other countries, maybe a little bit of it is, I feel, French. You don't, maybe I'm wrong, but you don't have guests from Spain or Germany, right? You have a few guests from France, Cédric, Loïc.
That's just because you guys came to us.
Yeah, but why didn't other people from other countries come to you?
Yeah.
theory is that in France we are indeed very active, and for all the crap we give each other, you know, between Americans and French, and you know, we have a little bit of friendly debates from time to time. We're actually very close in that respect, in our love of tech and our will to go forward in that direction.
Yeah.
Well, you certainly feel that way when you're at something like LeWeb'11, because everyone just wants to talk and meet and talk about what they're working on, and it's a very, it's not a cutthroat atmosphere at all in any way. But I don't feel like the podcast sensibility is like that. I'm sure there are some podcasts who are fiercely competing with one another, but as far as the tech community goes, I mean, we would never compete with you because you help us make our shows better, you know, and vice versa. It's like it's all the bigger pot of knowledge that we can all use from each other.
Maybe it will change, but at this point, there's definitely enough space for everyone, and it feels like that. So that's something that I admired a lot in the English podcasting world, and one of the reasons why I started getting with my fellow French podcasters, it felt like a community of friends, and you were all on each other's shows and inviting people, and so that's something that we didn't want to lose, and I think we managed to preserve it for now.
That's great. Well, we thank you for your host and your hospitality here in France. It's always fun to come and meet all our friends from France, and it's great to see you again.
Patrick Beja.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick
Good to
Beja.
have you here.
And again, I love the name, the No Watch Network. It's nowatch.com?
It's nowatch.net.
.net.
Yeah, it started at No Watch TV as a sort of a jab to TV. And then we converted it because we also have audio shows.
You have video now? No.
We have video and audio. So, yeah, an alternative to traditional media. NoWatch.net.
NoWatch.net.
Yeah.
And, of course, Patrick also has a lot of English language shows like the Phileas Club, which are great, really great shows.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
I have
you very
to come
much.
on again. We'll see you soon.
Thank you,
Patrick.
Thank you.
And we thank you for joining us live in Paris, where we have been at the LeWeb conference. We'll be back tomorrow. I'm just looking at the rundown tomorrow. We've got an amazing show planned for you. You're going to be on stage with the founder of Airbnb,
Brian
Chesky, in
yes,
the morning.
That'll be 10 a.m. Paris time, but we will be streaming it. Just be really early Pacific time.
Yeah, Jammerby has to get up at
I owe you
that's 1 in the morning,
man.
I think.
Yeah, something like that.
1 in the morning Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. And then we come back here into our studio at 1 p.m. Paris time for Leah Busk from TaskRabbit, Alexander Leung from SoundCloud. Robert Scoble will be here. The Scobalizer has been very active all over Paris. He's doing to Paris.
Does he let you call him the Scobalizer?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
He's doing to Paris what he does to Silicon Valley. He's terrorizing it with his presence. And that's all we can say. Bill Gross will also be here from Idea Lab. He is a really big thinker, very interesting fellow. That's another one of the...
He was on Triangulation recently, wasn't he?
No, we're trying to get him on.
Oh.
I'd love to get him on. He is another one of those tech incubators, like Paul Graham, who's a big thinker, who's really helped people get started. In fact, I think Idea Lab might have been the first tech incubator, or certainly a very early one. Ben Parr, who used to be at Mashable, I'm not sure what Ben's up to. We're going to find out.
We'll ask him.
Yeah, and Phil Lieben from Evernote. They have 2 big announcements at LeWeb this week. In fact,
anytime Evernote makes an announcement,
I know, I'm a big fan.
it just gets better. So
Yeah, I'm a
I'm
big
excited
fan.
about that.
Yep.
I'm also really excited about TaskRabbit. Have you ever used TaskRabbit?
I don't know what it is.
It is a service to outsource kind of dumb little jobs in your life that you don't want to do. Like you can hire somebody on TaskRabbit to go to IKEA, buy you an armoire, and then come to your house and set it up for very little money.
This sounds
That's
like
just one
something you can
example.
only do in San Francisco, New
Not
York,
true.
Los Angeles,
Well,
and Paris.
You have to have people who are willing to get a little bit of
wanted
money to
ask
buy
you,
an IKEA table.
There is a service, I found out about it in South by Southwest last year, called Uber. Last year they were sponsoring the pedicabs.
Why,
you have
yes.
an Uber app, you'd put it on your iPhone or your Android phone.
That's
And
right.
you'd say, I am here, come get me, and they would come and get you. This app has been available in the States for some time. You used it in Paris.
Yes, so Uber is a fantastic service because you call up it's a town car driver. It's nicer than
Not
a taxi.
just a taxi, it's a black car. It's
Right,
nice.
and let's say I'm at home or I'm here at the event and I fire up my app and I say, yes, I want to be picked up right now. It will show me on a map where all of the cars are. So I get a sense of like, if there aren't even any cars around me on the map, maybe it's not worth even getting an Uber because they
The
might not be
closest
within
driver,
5 to 10 minutes.
5 minutes away.
So there you go. So what happened
So now I
was,
press that green button and it says, come get me?
Well, you set up your pickup location. It'll say you want it like literally geolocated exactly where you are, and you might say, no, I actually want it to be on the corner. So you can type in a more specific address.
The driver has the app running in his car.
That's right. So these drivers all have their apps, just mounted in their dash, and they all get like, bloop, and then one of them says, yeah, I'll take that guy or gal, and then you and Clément, your driver, are now connected. And unless you or he cancels, which is very rare, and you have his number and he has yours, he picks you up at the designated place.
No money exchanges hands.
No money exchanges hands
because they have your credit card.
Yes, exactly.
And the tips included.
Tips included. Now, I will say, this is a little bit pricier than a cab ride because you're paying for a lot of convenience.
Right.
So it's the future of cabs, absolutely. In San Francisco, I'd use Uber all the time.
Do you?
Yeah, but I don't use it exclusively because it does rack
more
up.
Expensive.
Yeah, it's $30 maybe.
But it's
instead
hard to
of 15
get around
for a cab
Paris,
ride.
and I think the idea that I could press a button here and have somebody come get me, that's a pretty attractive.
Well, exactly. It's hard to explain where we are at the LeWeb venue,
and
but
there
it
are
is.
no cabs here.
No.
You're in the middle of nowhere.
You can take one here, but you're not going to just go outside and find one. It's in a northern part of town. No, almost suburbs, I guess you would call it.
Now the closest driver's a minute away. I think
minute away,
I think
yeah.
they heard us talking about it.
Right. Well, the nice thing about Ubers in Paris is that what Travis Kalanick, who's their CEO, and the team decided to do is, hey, they're going to be a bunch of techies who know how to use Uber already.
Right.
We're going to be in Paris, and are going to need them.
Is this for LeWeb they're doing this?
Well, this is their soft launch. They're going to stay in Paris. Once this conference is over, they figure there'll be so much good buzz generated by all of us.
Yeah.
MG and I actually have a very funny story where we were...
I watched this all happen on Path.
Yeah.
You arrived in Paris. You decided, for some reason, I don't understand, to take a train.
We decided to take the train to save a little cash.
Yeah. Okay.
So
you're frugal.
our
That's
intentions
good.
were good. The RER hit somebody, and we were stuck.
Wait, hit a person.
Yeah.
Actually
I
clobbered a person.
didn't see that happen, but that's why we were
stops.
stuck. It's a very crowded train. People were sneezing. I was starting to freak out. So we decided, well, whenever the next stop is, we're way out of town still. Just get off, and then we'll just figure something else out because it was very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Well, we picked the wrong stop to get off at. It was raining. We hadn't slept. We had just gotten off that Air France flight, which is difficult. Long flight. Long story short, MJ didn't know anything about this Uber, and he just was like, oh, I'm desperate. I'll just click the app and see if something happens. And there was a little car. And a few minutes later, this guy picked us up. I mean, I was almost in tears. It was a great ride.
Wow.
It was cheaper than going to the marina from my house in San Francisco.
Wow.
So anyway, yes, that
I'm gonna have to try it.
they're very pleased with the results so far, and they just want Parisians to be able to use Uber.
It's an iPhone app. I don't know. I presume there's an Android app, but I don't know.
There is.
Yeah. UBER.
Yeah.
Boy, I'd love to get them on. So I was wondering, because I looked on the webpage, because I saw your Path post that you'd found an Uber car. I thought, well, they're really far afield, because I didn't think they were outside of the U.S.
It was one of those situations
It's a limo
where
service. It's not a gypsy
the
cab.
train was no longer an option. There weren't any taxis. Nothing was open. It was Sunday night. It was dark. It was rainy. And the Uber saved us.
Yes.
Truly saved us. So maybe sometimes they're a little expensive, but God love them.
We'd like to thank Loïc Lemur for inviting us to LeWeb this year, for putting together this studio in conjunction with IBM. We really appreciate their support. And thank you for being here. We will be back tomorrow with more from LeWeb in Paris 2011. I'm Leo Laporte.
I'm Sarah Lane. Thanks so much for watching. See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.